Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Concession Stand Podcast. I'm so glad that you are all here joining us this evening. For those who don't know what we do here, what we do is we talk about things we like and are passionate about, like movies, video games, shows, and all that good stuff. This week is a special one. We have our very first anime film on the podcast. And don't shake your head at me, Jared.
You were so close.
I know.
So
I was on a roll. And a very special guest.
You're doing great, sweetie.
And a very special guest who is an anime connoisseur, to say the least. I'll be attempting to be your host, which is going so great so far, Sean. And I have with me my two very good friends, Jared. Jesus Christ. Jared and Micah. Combined your names. That'd be easy, though, if I just said Jared. Jared and Micah here with me. Jared and Micah, would you please tell these folks a little bit about yourselves?
I am Jared, also known as, I guess, Jera now, which is actually isn't that far off from my online name, which is Jer on Air. You just kind of skip the O part. But I am a variety streamer on Twitch, and I am also now a podcast person. I don't know if I guess we're all technically co-hosts, so I guess I could say I am a podcast host in a way, but I like to save that title for Sean because one of these days he's gonna nail that title without any issues. But I just play a bunch of games on stream here and there. But the other really important thing to know about me is that I am also a huge anime fan. Nowhere near as big of a fan as Steph or as knowledgeable as Steph. But I do love me some anime. I actually woke up this morning and started my rewatch, or continued my rewatch of Dragon Ball Z, watched Spirited Away,
Nice.
and then picked up my rewatch of Dragon Ball Z once again after that. So my Sunday has been nothing but anime, which has been very nice, and it's going to continue being nothing but anime as we get to talk about those films. So I'm very excited. So there's a nice little intro into me. If you would like to take it away, Micah.
Yeah, I'm Micah. I am not a general streamer, variety streamer like Jared or Sean or Steph, but I am an enjoyer of film. So I'm, I guess you could say I'm just a podcaster in this scenario. I think Sean does have my socials somewhere, which are mostly filled with my photography and or jokes and puns I come up with. So nothing exciting on my end other than the excitement I have to talk about movies and about this movie. So
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. And our guest this week is a dear friend of the stream, StephOfAnime. Steph, I said I was going to thank you a bunch of times. This is one of those times. Thank you so much for being here and talking about Spirited Away with us tonight. Do you want to tell people, for some reason that's here and they don't know who you are, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Steph, or StephOfAnime on all sorts of different platforms. I am a Nintendo variety streamer. I usually play a ton of Pokemon content, Final Fantasy XIV, especially if I'm up past my bedtime, usually because of a game like that. I'm playing through some games like Green Factory 5. By day, I work in the video game industry, and I help launch cool games. And then, yeah, at night, I'm streaming and doing cool things like that. And I am a huge anime fan. That's why I put anime in the username. You know, I'll give you a quick origin story. I thought to myself, if I put the word anime in my name, then immediately I can make friends. Immediately someone else who watches anime will be like, what anime? And it works every single time. That's how me and Jared became friends. Jared knew I liked anime, and then I knew Jared liked anime, and boom, friendship. It's great. I'm so happy to be here and talk about Spirited Away, which is my favorite of the Ghibli films. So I'm excited to deep dive or just talk about what we liked, disliked. I mean, I don't know what we're going to be talking about, but all I know is that I'm really happy to be here.
I am so happy that you were here too. I guess, so I'll dive into your origin with this. Do you remember when you started watching anime and whatnot? Because I'm kind of curious of, I would not consider myself an anime watcher per se. I've watched some, but I'm nowhere in the ballpark of you or Jared. I think I started, my first one was probably Dragon Ball Z, which Jared is rewatching right now, but I watched that when I was like 11 or 12 maybe, and kind of a little bit with that, and then really haven't watched any since. So I guess I'm just curious, both of you can answer this too. And Micah, I'm making assumptions, but I don't know how you are with the anime, so you can also answer this question. But I guess I'm just...
I would say you and I are the most similar in terms of having watched anime before. I do have a couple, eventually after this, I have a couple questions for Steph about which are the same questions you and I had when Jared was missing, and we were like, man, it sure would be nice if we thought of all these questions when two people who know things about anime are with us.
Right. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, Steph, if you remember, like, when you first started watching.
Oh, I do. Yeah. So, okay, just like any good boss fight in a video game, there's two phases to the story, okay? So there is, when I was watching anime but didn't know it was anime, and then there's the moment when someone explained to me what anime was, and that kind of also kickstarted my love of then, you know, researching and looking into, okay, what are more shows that are in this anime genre? So I've been a fan of anime my entire life as a very young kid. In fact, I just for a charity stream, you have a very little kid Steph being like, do you know about this show called Zatch Bell? So I watched a ton of things that were on early Toonami. So, you know, I've seen, you know, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Zatch Bell, Prince of Tennis, Naruto started to come on for a long time there, like in those early 2000s. And so all of those shows I was watching, but at the time didn't know it was considered anime. I just thought, wow, these cartoons have a really cool and unique art style, and the opening theme is not in English, you know? And, you know, I also really liked other shows at the time, like Code Lyoko was an early 2000s cartoon, and that's French, right? So young little Steph was like, oh, there's just shows that just don't, like, they're not from America, and they're really cool. And so I didn't really know that was anime. So, and also Pokemon, right, technically counts as well. And like I'm 2 years old holding Pikachu plushes, so I was very into that as well. And so I watched a lot of it because of early television, but didn't know it was anime. And so I just kind of enjoyed the show, was a big fan. And then when I was in summer camp, years and years later, I think I was, I don't know, maybe like 11 or something like that, when I was at summer camp and I saw this girl drawing Kagome from Inuyasha, and I was like, oh, hey, I know that character. And she was like, oh, do you watch anime? And I was like, anime, what's that? I just know the show. And then she became my senpai in a way, and she showed me the world of, oh, anime comes from Japan, and here are all these types of shows. And then from that day forward, you know, I would start researching, like, and then the early YouTube days, like in early, like 2009, like you could watch full shows on YouTube. And so, you know, younger Steph didn't realize about piracy and other things like that. So, you know, now I very legally support my anime industry. But at the time, there was a lot on the internet that I just kind of dived into and discovered. And that's kind of where it all got kickstarted for me.
Interesting. I didn't even consider Pokemon. I did watch Pokemon, so... which I feel like any gamer at this point in some capacities watch Pokemon.
We could have a whole different podcast. I think we've derailed Dr. Mick streams before about how do you classify anime, especially in this day and age. I have a lot to say on that, but that'll be for another time. But
that's fair. That's fair.
That was actually going to be one of my questions, which is one that Sean and I had when neither of you, well, obviously you weren't around, but Jared wasn't around either. and so like I was literally like, what is the difference between anime and just like animation? And so like where do you draw the line? And I think what we landed on independently, which was our guess, was that it's just what they call animation in Japan, but in America we now have a conceptualization of anime is an animated something that comes from outside of the US. And I think that's maybe what we landed on, but I can't, please correct me if I'm wrong or enlighten me if there's a better way to interpret what it is exactly.
I mean, I think it's still something that is not a point of contention, but I think if you ask different people will give you another answer. Because what I would say is that anime is for a long time was just considered, you know, cartoons from Japan, right? You know, short for Japanese animation. However, I think especially in these last few years, because of just how popular anime has become and how mainstream it's become, like you're now having like Chinese shows and Korean shows that are taking huge inspiration from Japanese anime, and like there's now these like archetypes and these cliches that have formed after decades of anime that I think it's starting to evolve a little bit. So yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's evolving, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's changing as it goes, because you know, there are some shows now, like there are some Korean animated shows that they have the same essence of what I think of when I think of anime, like in terms of like the emotion it evokes, like the way the cinematography is, right? Like some of those like physicalities to it. So Yeah, at first I was like, if you were to ask me 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, it's just cartoons from Japan. But now I'm starting to think there's like an art, it's like part of the art form, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say it's still a point of contention. I think it
Yeah.
depends on who you talk to. Like, if you're talking to somebody who's as nice as Steph, it's not going to be a point of contention. But like, I mean, there is a lot of. I mean, I hate the word gatekeeping just because it gets thrown
Yeah.
around so much, but like, it does actually apply a lot to anime these days, where there is a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah, there is.
Because, like, I mean, I like as you were talking, actually, it was really interesting because I didn't even think about that. There probably was a point in which I learned what anime was, but I don't have that like anchor point in my brain. Like I just know that I watched it as a kid, didn't know it was anime, and then at some point, I think maybe in early adulthood, or maybe even no, actually probably as early as middle school, probably is when I got the definition of anime, and my brain was just kind of like, oh yeah, like Dragon Ball Z is anime, cool, got it, and I just like moved on. Um, but like you get a lot of people who will have a very, very strong opinion on what anime is defined as. I tend to fall on the side of anime is animation that comes from Japan, and then everything else outside of that takes inspiration from it.
Mhm.
That's where I fall. I'm not like as strict on it, I think, as I used to be. I do agree with Steph in that that is evolving quite a bit because anime is big business now, and this was not always the case worldwide. Like I would say maybe even 10 years ago, the way it is now. So it is something that I think we are going to have to
Mm.
kind of have a conversation about and see what we want to do with the definition of it. Um,
I think
yeah.
Ruby is a really interesting case study because,
Mm,
you know, that's a completely American show, but they were very transparent that they wanted to create something that is like anime in Japan, like with that art style, with that feel, with that, like, you know, that action to it. And so when you have shows like that where they are basing it off of the cliches and the things that they know from anime, it's like, is that an anime? Like artistically?
Yeah.
You know, and artists will say the same thing too. Like some artists will say, okay, it's an anime art style. Like this style of drawing a character is anime.
Yeah, when you said that, I actually Googled Ruby, and the Wikipedia article itself calls it an American anime influenced show.
Well, Crunchyroll put it on, which is what I think created a huge explosion because Crunchyroll is where you watch anime and it's listed under the list of anime. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like when I think of anime, it is to me it's probably more of like Japanese animation and whatnot. But I do think of like the style of animation too, because it is a very unique style
yeah.
anime. And so I haven't seen Ruby, but I know of it. So I'm guessing it's probably. I mean, I can picture it based on just what you guys are talking about. That it's in that animation style of what I think of as anime. So interesting.
even then, that gets a little bit tricky because technology has made it so that even the style itself can kind of morph in a way
Mhm.
and be different. And so I think that pot of style has expanded so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, anime is not even fully like hand cell shaded anymore. I mean,
Yep.
versus
Mhm.
like nowadays,
Mhm.
you got CGI. That's the whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's either a fun conversation or a conversation you want to get out of immediately. It just depends on who you're talking.
It's
with.
true. I'm very anti gatekeeping though. So anytime
Yeah.
anybody tries to do anything, I shut it down so fast.
I
I think
mean,
the only conversation that's worse within anime is if you get somebody who's really big into like sub versus dub. That's the only thing I think that could be a worse conversation than this one.
I shut that down so fast. I watch in both languages very happily.
I mean, yeah, because I think having those conversations with people that are passionate about it, you're thinking like you would want to bring people into it. It's like, man, this is great. I want to share this with people. But then you bring this attitude of that, and you're like, well, like I don't like. You kind of associate it with that attitude. And like, I don't want to associate with that. Like if it's this negative vibes, like, why do I want, like, why would I want to jump into this then? So yeah, the gatekeeping part, it's just like counterproductive. Like, why would you want to, do that? And like the dub versus sub thing, I have a different opinion of that with just foreign films. I think animation, you get a little bit more wiggle room with dub versus sub kind of thing. But that's also another podcast. We have like 3 other podcasts lined up now just from these other ideas now. So, but that's fine.
Power of anime.
It's sparking all sorts. All right, I will give a brief, a very brief, because I wasn't going to go through. I usually will say the actors in this, but we've got dub versus sub, and I'm not going to. Well, and that's a topic we will talk about on this. But so Spirited Away was directed by Hayao Miyazaki. So he was not retired. When did he retire? Sorry, I'm getting off. It was 2012.
Later, I think.
Was it later? Okay.
I think The Wind Rises is 2015 is going to be my guess. I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
I didn't even think about looking that up.
2014. I was so
2013, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 2013 in Japan, 2014 in North America.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway, I was just thinking about it. I remember it being a big deal when he was like, "Yeah, I'm done," and then he's like, "I'm actually still doing stuff." So
yeah.
But anyway, Spirited Away. So the very quick synopsis. During her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old. This is the IMDb synopsis. A sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into a world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. Whew, very quick.
Oh wow, yeah, that is really quick.
Yeah, that's the puck. See you guys later. No,
And that's the summary. Goodbye.
We now understand Spirited Away. So this was my second time watching this movie. This was the first time I watched it was subbed. And it was the DVD, so I had like the Netflix subscription and all that stuff. And so that gives you the choice. But when I rewatched it, I thought I had a choice, but I was planning to watch the dubbed version just because I was curious. And I did enjoy the dubbed version. I mean, like it's animation, so I think it's not. I think my issue with dubbed foreign live action films is just it's so hard to match the energy of when you see the actor and the body language. It's so hard to match that, I think. And so it takes me out of it. And I think animation, you do have a little bit more space to kind of get that feel and that vibe in there for me. So, but I was curious on your guys' watch. I guess you two watched it on HBO Max. You both watched it.
We could only watch it dubbed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys have watched it subbed if you had the choice?
I think I would have.
Yeah.
I also don't care how you watch anime, but for me, my preference is always to watch sub anime. I'm kind of with you. I think it probably happened when somebody just pointed out how like the lines don't always match with the movements of the mouth, and I just like one day I just paid attention to it after somebody said that. I didn't pay attention to it before that, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And so
shattered
like,
the glass.
It shattered the glass. Yeah.
It's the
It
worst.
was kind of like, oh, I'm just happy to be like, watching Dragon Ball Z. I'm just happy to watch these dudes shooting energy balls out of their hands. And now all of a sudden I'm looking at like Goku's mouth and I'm like, oh, great. Now it's all I can look at.
I know.
But yeah, I was planning on watching it in sub, but dub the dub for this is just fine too.
Mm-hmm. Steph, do you have a preference of either? And how did you rewatch this for this, or is this just you just know this movie so well that you don't even need to rewatch?
I have not rewatched it recently, but I have seen this movie probably 10 plus times, so I'm feeling pretty good to be able to recall everything. Well, This is one of my favorites. I've watched it both subbed and dubbed. I'm happy. I love both. I also find it really interesting, it depends on the type of anime you watch, like in terms of like the lip flaps, for example, because some studios have like track records, like Funimation, for example, has a very good track record of like matching their flaps really well. But if you go back to the 90s and early 2000s when the technology wasn't there, and also that was before they started hiring actors and voice actors, and instead they would bring radio show hosts to dub these anime. And that's why it wouldn't sound so good, because they don't have like this acting experience. So I always feel bad that dubs get such a bad rap in the anime community, because everyone thinks of the early Sailor like Moon dubs and like the early dubs that like weren't at their best. And nowadays like you have actors doing it. And what's really fascinating, to bring it back to Miyazaki films, is that because Studio Ghibli is so huge, a lot of times they have some pretty like A-list celebrities in these films. And so I don't know the casting for Spirited Away, but I know, for example, in Howl's Moving Castle, like Christian Bale is the lead. So it's just all these like really big names in a lot of these films. And like the Miyazaki films will have that similar, like, because Disney I think has a hand in the Studio Ghibli stuff. And so Disney will hire actors who are not only talented, but also look like the lead characters. And so that's something I think is also the case with these movies as well, if I'm not mistaken.
We were talking about that exact thing before you came on because Sean looked up. We did this a couple weeks ago. I can't remember why we did this a couple weeks ago. But we looked up the cast list for The Wind Rises, and it is just absolutely stacked. That movie. And so this one, I was, obviously the earlier one. So there's like a couple names in it. Like Michael Chiklis is the dad. Um, but like once you start to get the films going, the cast lists just go bananas. It's
Yeah.
really fun to look at.
Yeah, I think especially when you get into like the time when you start getting movies like The Secret World of Arrietty, which I was just talking about earlier in my stream with chat, and that one had like some like Disney young stars. So then a lot of like the kids who went to go see that were like, oh, it's this person from like Wizards of Waverly Place, like all those like 2000s like Disney shows. I forget everyone's names. I'm really bad if they're not really like a well-known anime voice actor. I'm like, who's this? Who's this famous person? Christian Bale's Batman? Wait, really? I don't know.
That's interesting. I want to say Spirited Away was one of the first ones that Disney was involved in, I think, because I mean, you see John Lasseter as like a producer and stuff, so like Disney is in the credits and whatnot with this one. So it was, I guess that is probably when the pull with the American voice actors and dubs and stuff started getting like, okay, let's start, pulling
1996 was when Disney started becoming the sole distributor for Studio.
Okay. Yeah.
So 5 years prior to this movie, they started to become official.
Steph, you said you had some question, or you said, I'm trying to remember how you phrased it. You had themes or questions and
I have
whatnot?
topics.
Topics. Word. Yeah.
Brain went blank. I'm so sorry. I'm curious what so I'm deeming you the expert of this, so I'm curious what your topics that you have in mind are, especially because you're so passionate with this.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different routes we could take it. Well, so I have a way we can really derail and analyze and break down this film. So what I think is before we go into some of these deep dives, because I wanted to bring niche things so I was predicting, right? So before I come on a podcast, I'm like, instead of the normal thing, which is asking Sean, hey, Sean, what are we going to talk about? I was like, I'm going to predict what we're going to talk about. And then I want to come up with topics that I don't think that Sean's going to be bringing up on today's podcast. So what I assumed we could start off with is just what everyone's like initial thoughts were before, because the topic I'm excited to bring to the table is the conspiracy theories. I didn't know if you all kind of dived in, and there's some very interesting like dark side of Studio Ghibli films where a lot of people will like kind of think, oh, okay, does this film have this type of theme around it or this type of thing? So that's what I wanted to bring to the table. But before we do that, we should probably just talk about what everyone thought about it, maybe.
No, yeah, I think that's always a good jumping up. I feel like that's where the tangents come from and the natural flow of it. Anyway, so my second time watching this, I mean, I loved this. This movie was great for me. I'm always sucked into the end. There's something with the Ghibli film animation that feels so smooth and so unique. And I was looking up too, like the software that they used to animate this was relatively new at the time, and it did a lot of interesting things that they could do. I'm assuming they couldn't do with other films, but it blows my mind. Like everything is moving in their films. It's always like you'd see stuff in old movies where like the background's just still not really doing anything, but it's like, oh, okay, that's the sky, but like the skies in these movies blow my mind every time. Seeing the waves in the grass, like I on HBO.
That was gonna be my. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
That was exactly what I noticed too, because my big complaint with just general, I can think of like Scooby-Doo shows from the 50s where exactly what book they're gonna grab because the whole background is drab and dry, and then there's one book that's bright blue and it's like, well, that's the one they freshly drew. And so that was my big thing I noticed with this was just I kept being like, wow, I'm super impressed with the movement of the wind here or the stream here or the ruffling of the edges of somebody's hair or clothes, or it was just a lot more intricately, like everything was animated, not just the thing that was in focus, which I thought was super nice and refreshing compared to what I'm used to watching.
Yeah, completely. I remember one of the things that I learned a lot with, and I feel like I dive more into like the production side with these things a little bit, but one of the things I've learned with like 3D design and just making stuff like motion graphics even too applies with this, where you want to create, like if you're trying to recreate something, you want to make it look realistic, and the way to do that is imperfections. And so, because if you just make like a clean looking, like if I'm recreating my mic, like, you know, there's like little indents and these little things in there, and so like when you put those in there, it's more, I guess, interesting, but it looks more convincing when you're looking like, wow, that really looks like that mic. And so one of the things that I loved was, I'm blanking on, it's the guy with he's got 4 arms, and I want to say Kim Jari, is that his name? I'm blanking on.
Oh,
Kamaji.
yeah.
Yeah, Kamaji.
Yeah.
There was a scene where he brings his arm up and he's going up and he's grabbing the cabinets or whatever with all the different stuff. And there's like, as it's going up, you see like the ingredients or whatever he's grabbing, like one of them's falling, and like things are like, you know, like those, like they could have easily just drawn like, yeah, they're all just going up clean, no problem. But like those little details, I love that stuff, because it's just, I think to me that brings me in because it feels more realistic. And obviously this movie is very far from realistic. This movie's wild, it's crazy, and it's just an absolute joy to watch this, because it's just so much. But I love how much is moving in this, because I'm just looking at everything, and it's incredible. So I think the animation for and even watching Princess Mononoke was the same way, where I was just like, there's just so much, and I love it because it's not boring to just watch. Like Scooby-Doo is a good example, because I know exactly what you're talking about with the book thing, where like, okay, he's gonna pull that one out or whatever, that kind of thing. So this was just, and the scale of the bathhouse was nuts. It's just these wide shots where she's running along the side and she's climbing up the side, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm literally anxious watching this, because I don't know what's gonna happen. So I guess my rant over, but the animation with this is easily my favorite part of these films. So
Dude, this makes me so happy, because I don't know if we've done a movie where you've like been this excited to talk about how it is.
Yes.
And what did it happen when we picked an anime film? This is my first Ghibli movie. Which I was like, I've been beating myself up about it for a really long time, but I looked up the first digital release of these movies in the US was actually only in 2019. So one of the reasons why it took me so long to watch them is because I felt like it was a bit of effort to watch them. Like, I mean, Sean watched it on like a Netflix DVD.
Mhm.
You went out and bought the DVD, and I stopped buying DVDs like a while ago, because like my house is literally filled with DVDs. Like, I'm pretty sure somewhere next to me is a freaking Avatar Blu-ray that like has never been opened. We just used to buy DVDs for no reason. And so I'm glad that I started with this one, because I'm sure the animation and some of the later ones probably gets, I don't know, quote unquote, better, just because like they're later and technology gets better. But this is, it's unbelievable, the scale at which like they animated this film and how gorgeous it looks. Needless to say, I liked it. I'm gonna rant about it a lot, so I'll jump ahead. It gets a pass for me. We'll get that out of the way now. Very easy to do. I don't know. There are a lot of things I love about this movie, and we're gonna get through them as we go along. But overall, I just think it was really, really charming. And I think watching it also in juxtaposition with my like Dragon Ball Z rewatch, it was really interesting, because that's also the first anime I think I really truly dove into and like loved. Um, and so going back through that and then also starting this as well, I've been doing a little bit of comparison just because it's hard for my brain not to.
Mhm.
But I loved it. I cannot wait to watch more. I almost watched another one like right afterwards, but I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna save it because we might do another one of these on one of them, and I really, really like to watch the movie like a few hours before we go live, so everything's fresh. But it was really, really hard for me to not press play on like Kiki's delivery service.
And,
I was this close.
and they're all right there, right on HBO, which is
They're
nice
right there.
now.
Press the button,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. You've been neglected for so long, and now they're right there. I want to put this in there real quick too. We're not doing anything with like spoilers. We're jumping right in. So if for some reason you haven't watched this, like Jared just recently watched this for the first time, I just want to put that warning out there for people. So Steph, if you want to spoil stuff, don't hold back if it comes up. So feel free. But anyway,
I probably will.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Oh my gosh, Jared, you've touched on so many great things. Oh my gosh, where do I begin? I mean, just to Jared's point, I mean, part of the reason why Spirited Away is my favorite of all of the films is while I think every single film is like an art piece, even just more so than like a movie you watch for entertainment. And the reason why I like Spirited Away is I feel like it hits all of these different elements where it's serene yet really whimsical, and I don't want to say action packed, not in like a shonen DBZ style, but there's action in that, the characters are running, they're very vibrant and dynamic, and I think that just it gives more for someone to like take away with this movie than there are some other ones that, Jared, if you give another watch, like I always think Spirited Away is such a good entry level, because someone who starts with, say, My Neighbor Totoro, you have to be in a very specific mood, in my opinion, to like fully appreciate what it is. It's a lot slower paced. It's a lot more of this like gentle, smooth, I guess, movie experience, like where you really kind of take away like what you kind of look for in it, versus Spirited Away, you can turn your brain off and still be like, wow, that was like a cool adventure story. Or if you deep dive into Spirited Away, you're like, wow, there was this, this young girl who, was kind of feeling this like depression from like, having to move to a new place, be away from her old family and friends, and like having to cope with those feelings. And then through this adventure, finds like herself again. Like there's like ways you can really deep dive into it, or just be like, wow, it was really cool. She ran to a dragon and all of these spirits, and like her parents turned into pigs, and you just like at face value you get so much out of that. And some of the other movies, I think like it's just a lot either slower, or you have to like be thinking a little bit more to like not feel bored by those Ghibli films, because I think I've had some friends say Totoro is kind of boring, even though it's the most lovable, iconic, friendly fellow. Some people don't like the movie, and I love the movie. I think it's really charming, but like I have to be ready to like watch a slow movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting you say that, because you know what, I'm trying to get through it, but you know what actually is really, really boring? It's Dragon Ball Z. That show is boring. I did not realize this as a kid. I think I was just a different person like as a child, but man, like watching Spirited Away, I was like locked in every single moment. I was ready to go. I could be biased in that I was very excited to like talk about an anime movie with you, so that probably is going on there. I do have to acknowledge that bias. But like I would not ever put the word boring on this film. I don't know how you can get bored. There's so many moving parts at all times.
Yeah. But Jared, you need 3 episodes to power up.
Man, it's been weird. I'm sure I'm gonna make a lot of people upset with my takes once I'm done, because it's like so beloved. Like, I mean, I like one of the reasons why I love anime is because of Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it now, I just don't. It's hard. It's rough.
It's
Never meet your heroes, basically, is what it feels like.
That's fair. Micah, do you want to tell us what you thought of?
Yeah. So Jared stole the word out of my mouth, but my first comment is, wow, this is a charming little piece of art. Like it was just charming. I found it incredibly charming.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest note I have out of everything, which is mostly what I'll bring up, so it kind of reminded me of whether or not this actually was the point or was I think one of the things you could pull out of this is it feels like a story told from the point and for the viewership of a kid who let's see, I'm gonna have a hard time explaining this. So like it felt like the whole experience of the movie was this young girl who, like, all the adults around her were making these weird decisions all the time. And so it kind of felt like this whole scenario of being a kid and not really fully understanding, like, why are my parents doing this weird thing, or like why are they fighting, or why are they acting this way, or why is this person doing this thing, and I guess I have to learn how to make my way through this world because adults are strange and they're always doing strange things. And that's kind of how I felt, because a lot of the comments I wrote down were just, so like in the start, her parents are just like, oh, let's just pull over and eat this street food that nobody is supervising, that and they're just so willingly like scarfing it down. And so she looked confused and I was confused, and so it was just like, okay, well, and then that led to her having to go through all this stuff and figure out. And then there was also the scene with I think her name was Lynn, after the no face man is at the spa or whatever, and he's getting, and everyone's feeding him everything, and he looks the exact same, but everyone's just like, here, take all this food, and they're all getting the gold, and so everyone's really being kind of greedy, and she's just like, no, I don't want that. And then later Lynn is like, how could you let him in? He was a terrible monster. How could you let him in? And she's like, I don't know. And it's like, you gave him food. He looked the same to you as he did to her. Like, why are you chastising her for, I don't know. So then it was just like this growing set of things around her where it was just like everybody acting strange around her and greedy around her and making decisions that she didn't quite understand, and then her making all these decisions to learn how to sort of cope and get through the world and to sort of, I don't know, learn how to manage being around adults and adult opinions and adult things. And so that was kind of my takeaway. So it kind of felt like it was from the viewpoint of a child learning to be a part of the world, sort of. And just delightful, just charming and delightful. So that's my 2-cent takeaway.
It's interesting the lens of maybe how she's seeing everything too, because I think that's a thing I try to keep in mind when watching movies and whatnot, is the perspective of, because like the way that I see something is not how you're going to see something, or it's like, to me it's going to be like, wow, my parents they're being crazy, and obviously they were. Like, I think it's interesting too, the film's take on gluttony and greed. That's a big theme. I feel like that pops up a bunch. But I thought maybe it is something where it's like, from her point of view, just they seem crazy or something, but maybe from the parents' point of view or something, it could be just like they're just calmly eating stuff, and or something along those lines. But obviously we only get her point of view, which is fine. That's the point of the film. So that's an interesting point to bring up with from her point of view, I guess. I'm just repeating point of view. I feel like I'm saying point of view too many times right now. But
Never say it too many times.
maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep, I wanted to talk about the food in the movie.
I know that is a big thing in Ghibli films.
Okay. What I'm curious what you thought about the food.
It's just to me it's like a comfort thing watching it. It's I don't know what it just feels. Well, I don't know what the food was. It's when Haku and her, he takes her somewhere and gives her this like pie. It's like a rice
Triangle onigiri.
Yes, those. And like it was just like the most simple thing, but just like watching her eat the animation. I feel like I'm gonna come back to the animation so much because I'm just watching this movie in awe.
It is an animated film.
It is, yeah. I think it's just like I get caught up in just the process of animating, and I know how complicated it is, and it's just like it blows my mind how smooth and well done this is. So it's like my brain watching the eating was just like, man, it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's something that I can't describe effectively, but it is. I mean, I guess they kind of touch on it with like the gluttony stuff with like the parents at the beginning with the food, and they're just like scrounging everything, and like the chaos of that scene is nuts with all the plates crashing, and like I could feel the anxiety and like the like, oh my god, like I don't know what's happening right now kind of thing. And you can see her freaking out and stuff, but yeah,
well,
I guess
so. It even started before that. If you notice, I could be wrong. The only 2 product placement items that appear are with the parents in the car. It's a Kit Kat and an Audi.
Oh, I didn't see the Kit Kat. Actually,
and so
sorry,
there's one more. There's one more in there that you probably missed, but it's the Pocky sticks.
Oh, I love Pocky.
There are Pocky
yeah.
sticks. There are Pocky sticks on the back dashboard, and when he's driving really fast and going up, they spill out of the box.
Okay.
But you got the other one.
Yeah. So I noticed that because I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like you don't really see movies animate an Audi car logo onto the car. So I was either like, well, either they got money for that or that's important. And so my thought, once they start gorging on all this food, I was like, oh, I wonder if like greed and gluttony and consumption of new materials and new merchandise is like a component of this movie. And kind of turned out to be.
That would kind of
That's
make
interesting. I never thought about the product placements with this one, actually. For as many times as I've seen it, never
yeah.
thought about it.
Because it's all these new packaged packaged candy. You got the Audi, and then with the Pockies, that's a packaged, snack thing too. Then to switching over to, they're eating just, this simple, what did you say it was called? The rice thing?
Onigiri.
Nigiri. Like they're just eating the simple nigiri, or like all the food they're eating throughout and making throughout. It's more of a culturally important, or like, food from maybe some of these people's pasts, as opposed to just Audis and Kit Kats and whatever else was in the start of the movie.
So it's interesting that you noticed that, because that's actually one of the topic headers in the Wikipedia article is Western consumerism is how they have it labeled. And they go in
Really?
there and they talk about like how greed is portrayed, which brings me to my thing that I saw is that I actually think that this was the least appetizing food I've ever seen in Ghibli film, just from like seeing screen caps or anything like that. And I'm wondering if the reason why is because they tried to make it seem like there was just so much of it and they didn't really need to go into detail on it. Because like that scene with the parents in the beginning where they're eating,
It's
none of
gross.
that food, none of that food made me excited to eat it. Whereas like, I'll watch like stuff like caps from like Kiki's delivery service and I'm immediately in my fridge like the next moment. But like that stuff, I was like, I don't want to eat any of that. Like he ate that like one just like really big like ball or like bag kind of thing, and then when he bit into it, like nothing but like slime came out of the bottom. They even somehow made the mustard seem just kind of like bland. I was just like that. I noticed that immediately because like that's was something that I was looking for. Whereas like Sean was saying with the onigiri, like that actually really like it's funny you pointed out comfort because she was very sad in that moment. She also needed to eat something, and that did look just so much like straight up comfort food. Like it looked like the perfect thing you could have eaten in that moment. But then if you go to like the no face scenes where he's literally just constantly scarfing down everything they're bringing to him, he put that one bowl in front of her and he's like, "Here, try this. It looks really good." I'm like, that looks really bland. Like it was literally just like pork with like lettuce on the side. And like you watch these other ones, like you'll see some of the stuff where like they'll show scenes of it like sizzling and stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to eat something immediately. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And I wonder if they did that on purpose.
The part that gets me is like the action of eating it. I think like encapsulates like the greed and like the starvation of it, and that's where I'm like, oh no, I don't want it, because like the way they're like tearing and there's spits everywhere. Like that's the part where I'm like, no. But the actual food before that, I'm like, nah, I want to go to this festival and eat it. Like I like the food on its own. I just didn't like the scarfing of the said food. It was unpleasant.
Yeah. I mean, I think that touches on the greed / gluttony part of it, where it's just like it's just not an appealing thing to have. I do know. I think it's interesting too. Like what you were saying, Micah, with like the consumerism aspect of it and whatnot, and I feel like they kind of touch on environmental stuff a little bit too in this with oh my god, the stink.
Stink spirit.
The stink spirit, yes, thank you. And like I was looking up too, Miyazaki was saying how that whole sequence where she's pulling all the stuff out of the stink spirit, like the bike and whatnot, that was something from like his personal experience. Not pulling a bike out of a stink spirit, obviously, but something, of that, where I think it was seeing like a bike on the road or something like that, and it was just kind of like just mangled and whatnot. But I thought that maybe it's touching on something with that too, that connection to the greed and whatnot, and how it's because they're the water was gone, and like that's how they crossed the river. They're, like that wasn't there anymore, kind of thing. And so maybe it's touching on something along those lines where the human impact of what we're doing is affecting everything else and whatnot with the greed and stuff.
Another header in the Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
Environmentalism.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that until the end when he figured out who he was. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that river. They built apartments over it." And I was like, "Oh, that's absolutely got to be some kind of social commentary there, where he's just like, yeah, man, I used to be alive and in the world, and now I'm gone because somebody decided to, put homes over a natural river." So yeah, I didn't notice that until hour 2 minute like 13 or whatever it is. So it's funny you picked up on that much sooner than me. I was like, oh, yeah, it's just a stink spirit, whatever.
He's just eating stuff. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, that was that whole secret. There was something satisfying. I come back to the animation so much, but the stink spirit going into the bath and like the way the water flowed out. Oh my god, I was bringing this up before. HBO had like a whole. It was like a 30-minute Ghibli nature. It was just I think it's just the music, and then it's just like the Ghibli nature scenes. It's like, oh my gosh, I almost put that on and watched that first before watching Spirited Away, and I think that kind of helps me want to like. I'm glad that my wife wants to keep watching Ghibli films, because I was like, after watching this, I think it was literally 2 minutes of that, I was like, man, this is gonna be so good. Just from that alone, I was excited. Yeah.
So, Steph, what are these conspiracies that we need to know about?
Okay, so they're not super conspiracies, but I want, and maybe, now that we know Jared's got a Wikipedia article, I don't know if this is actually popular enough to where it's on there or not. I haven't read the Wikipedia article, but I wanted to get everyone's insight on the big, like, dark theory that people talk about with this movie is that the whole thing is a social commentary on child prostitution.
Oh.
So is that Jared's face? I guess that's not on the Wikipedia article. So I wanted to kind of present.
Not in here.
I would love. So this is it's interesting because this is a family film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to have this, it's like a bit of a point of contention, but there's a lot of very interesting points that make a lot of sense about it. Okay, so I'll present and then just talk about it. It's just something that people mention when it comes to this movie because it is a family film, so it's a little weird, but. You have a bathhouse, right? You have this girl who is signing away her name, which is like a direct kind of like, comparison, right? And in fact, in the Edo period in Japan, bathhouses were also brothels. So there's there's this. And there was a couple of other, let me see, I'm going to pull up because I made some notes here. I believe with their names, the word because you have Yubaba and then you have, I think they're called Yunas in the Japanese dub, but also just like in the signs and whatnot, which which means hot water or like hot water woman. And so there's this theory that this film is not just, about her discovering, but also like, with her parents, like her having to kind of fend for herself and like go into this adult world. And like when No Face is like trying to give her money, it's to kind of try and buy her off. And so what do you think about this as a theme here?
I never ever would have thought of it on my own. But so I my brain's kind of like twisting now, and I'm trying to go back and think. I can just immediately off the top of my head with the scene with the you just said this, the stink spirit.
Yeah.
How he shows up and everyone's just like, ew, gross, it's this big ugly stink spirit, whatever. And then so I'm really bad with character names. The grandma character,
Yubaba.
Yeah, how she's just like, oh, we'll just get this person out of here super quick.
Yeah.
And then she throws her at this mess and is just like, here, you'll deal with this patron who's the bad and stinky and worse one or whatever. And so that sort of does feel like, okay, well, we've got this young child who is now going by a different name, and she's being thrown upon this big wig, stinky, whatever. This guy they just want out quickly and
this
done
client
with.
that they don't like.
Yeah. So now with that sort of lens over it, it's just like, ooh, gross. But also, yeah, I think that makes it doesn't not make sense.
Yeah. My chat's bringing up another point that I think too is like you have the scene where Lynn is like kind of taking her in and like kind of showing her the ropes and like being like that older sister role model, kind of looking out for her. And then you have all these again, like the kind of tensions like with some of the other ladies and like around. So yeah, it's just I always found it fascinating because you have some theories where I'm like, there's no way. But with this one, I'm like, I can kind of see it. I can see a very direct comparison here. So I just thought I would throw that one in here to kind of digest and think about.
Yeah,
I can see it. I think the only thing that like doesn't keep me from going like full on into the theory is that there's really only two other children in the movie, and it's like her and Haku. Which I mean, we find out Haku is a literal dragon spirit, so not really a child, just looks like one. Um, but like outside of that, like if there were like more children around, I could easily see it. I did think it was interesting that all of the workers were all human, so there's definitely an exploitative nature to the
Mhm.
film already, and I don't
Right.
think it would be very hard to make connections to put it to like a child prostitution allegory either. I don't think it would be that hard to do.
Well, Jared, I think the counter argument to that would be just because she's the only child there doesn't mean the rest of these humans were not previously children who used to be in her position, and she's just the only child currently who's been brought into the prostitution
Oh
ring.
yeah, I mean, I thought about
And
that too,
all
but like child trafficking doesn't necessarily slow down. So, it's not like they got a bunch of kids, they all went to 30 and they're like, all right, cool, let's get this other one. It's awful. It continually goes on. That's the counter argument I would use against that. But like
right.
that thought did cross my mind.
That's so that's not naturally watching it. That at least at this point, I feel like that's where I'm watching this so many times, and I'm just thinking like, all right, what direction can I go with this now or something? But that's interesting. That's just not one I would have connected at
I
first.
told you I wanted to bring some surprises. I was
Yeah.
like, what's something that I don't think this is like very niche in the community?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
That one was not on the Wikipedia, so
Yeah.
you win that round.
Let's go. There's another one with My Neighbor Totoro that's a little deep and dark, but we'll save that for another time. But yeah, I think because I mean, even without that lens, like I like the idea of looking at her where like there's this corrupt, like trying to corrupt a child and her trying to maintain her innocence in a way, and whether you take it to that extreme or just like the corruption of greed or just exploitation in like other ways, like I think that that's really well done with this movie.
Yeah. I kept saying so many times throughout, just like, my God, she's brave. There's just so many things she's doing where she's cleaning the stink spit. She probably wouldn't have done it if she wasn't forced to do it, but she's just like, all right, like I'm doing it. And she just dives in and goes. Like she's just in the stinks. It just looks disgusting. It's just like they make it where I would not want to approach the stink spirit and clean the stink spirit, but she handles it with grace. And the way she's just running through the bathhouse and stuff when she's on the run and stuff like that. She's just running after Haku. I feel like she does find her own in this, and it's pretty fascinating to watch where she just, I don't want to say grows up per se but they kind of force her to when she just doesn't have her parents and she's just doing everything on her own. And I think I feel like from that lens of watching her journey, it's pretty fascinating too. But
Mhm.
but
Just like you're gonna bring up animation a bunch, I'm gonna bring up Dragon Ball Z. And one of my favorite things about her is that even going through all of these like awful huge things, I'd never once found her character to be annoying. Like people would constantly point out how she was like rude or whatever, but like if I also got dragged into a spirit world, my first thoughts aren't going to be yes sir, yes ma'am, or like make sure I bow all the time. I'm like, holy, like I was a berry away from being a spirit, and now
Mhm.
I'm not. Whereas when you watch early Dragon Ball Z, Gohan is the most annoying, whiny little kid I think in the history of anime children. I
Yeah.
hate Gohan being on the screen. He has all this power, and people are like, hey, we need to do this one thing to make sure that we're okay. And he freaks out, and he's like, I can't do it. It'll literally be like 100 frames of him just sitting there being scared all the time. Whereas with her, she's just like, oh, I gotta go help this stink spirit. Gotta do it. Oh, I have to go down this like huge giant staircase that at one point I almost fell through, and then I have to ask this random dude to give me a job. Yeah, sure, fine, I'll do it. Oh, this dragon friend of mine is being attacked by a million little paper soldiers. Let me just go ahead and jump in the fray. Like she just does it. Never found her annoying. She's been extremely brave the whole film. I love her as a character. Do
Mhm.
not like young Gohan.
I'm glad that that's your frame of reference with this. It's you know what? It's good because it's one that I can personally like. I know exactly
Yeah,
what
you
you
kind
mean.
of you
Yeah,
you also can kind of get it. Yeah.
yeah.
Micah,
No.
if you ever watch Dragon Ball Z, fast forward through all the young Gohan screens, you'll be better for it.
I've never watched it, nor have I really had an interest in it for some reason. I didn't grow up with it and
Mhm.
never tried it as an adult.
Yeah. Steph,
Fair.
you saying Toonami was crazy. I think about Toonami every once in a while and I forget about it. And then the flashbacks of Toonami, and I didn't even think about Sailor Moon either. I just thought of this, so I'm sorry, I'm going off tangent with this stuff, but I did also watch Sailor Moon too, so I guess my
Look at
whole
that. You've
yeah.
been an anime fan this whole
I
time.
know, that's crazy. It's
Think
wild.
about Toonami every day.
Yeah.
There
I
was even that. Do you remember when they did that like arc within the Toonami where the guy, like the Toonami guy,
Mhm.
actually was like
mhm.
going through a bunch of like trouble and like the ship like blew up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then he had oh yeah. And
And
I
I
watched
also
this
was
one too.
100% following when they stopped Toonami and then they brought Toonami back for an April Fool's joke. And then because everyone was freaking out that April Fool's and demanded Toonami came back, then it came back.
Yep.
And they brought it back.
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. God. I'm not gonna. This is not the conversation trajectory of child prostitution was not in my wheel. I don't know how many guesses it would take me to get there, but that was not in there for me. So that was
Yeah, no, I was not going to guess that as one of your conspiracy theories.
no, not at all. I
Yeah,
know.
that's the big one.
I know, like I've seen some of like the Pixar ones and stuff where those can get like people will spin those in like these weird like, like everybody's dead or something kind of theory
Yeah.
or something, and so it's interesting with this one too that there's a do you have other ones that are in that?
Not for this movie.
Not for that. Okay.
Not that I think is like worth bringing up, I don't think.
Okay.
That's the one that I always find the most fascinating with this one.
Yeah.
I will say I don't have specific examples off the top of my head. I cannot think of it, but I do genuinely remember laughing out loud. The comedy in this movie is great. There's a lot of like really good cuts where like it's kind of like those perfect scream cuts or something like that where they're cut in the middle of the scream or something.
Can I just say one of my favorite scenes is when she's going down the stairs.
Mhm.
Oh my god, the stairs breaks and she has to start screaming, running down.
Yeah.
That's like perfect scream, perfectly cut screams.
Yeah.
Is like that scene is so it gets me laughing every time.
And
So good.
the athleticism of her to fall like that and then catch yourself and then run down those stairs as gracefully. I mean, as graceful as you can while you're screaming like that, I don't know, but she survived, so she did a pretty good job. But yeah, I remember laughing so many times with like, I feel like it was kind of like slapstick comedy a little bit where it's just like stuff's hitting them and it's like, it's just, it's real quick. Cause usually I feel like comedies will kind of like the moment will happen and they'll sit there for like a second or two to kind of like, oh, but this would like, I remember there was like two particular moments, and I wish I could remember these moments.
I think I know one
specifically.
of them.
And it was, I couldn't stop laughing at it. I feel like we almost had to pause.
Was one of them when the mouse stepped on the remnants of the slug, and then it like shot like a shiver through its spine, like it got cursed, but then it mimicked the finger thing.
Yeah.
And they all raised their hands triumphantly. Was that one of them?
That was,
that was one of them for me.
Yeah. Oh man,
That scene was incredible.
Mm-hmm. They did. There was animation. There was a moment where literally it showed. It might have been that scene too. I can't remember, but it was something where like I got like the heebie-jeebies of watching, and it was like somebody was getting the tingles. I wish I.
It might have been the stink. It might have been the stink spirit scene.
Okay.
Because she gets them multiple times whenever she has to interact with the stink spirit.
Where her skin gets all zigzaggy, but in emotion.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that. Like I felt that.
Yeah.
Which I normally I don't. My only point of reference is, Pokemon. But like when somebody will say something and then Ash gets embarrassed and he goes like and then like the little drop here. I've never been like, oh, like that's not how I feel when I am in that moment. But when I watched that moment where Chihiro gets like the and she then gets all stiff, I was like, oh, I know that feeling. Like I've been in that body before. And that was just such a good representation of that. I thought that was so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I laughed out loud in this movie was the soot spirit. And it was when that one soot spirit dropped the coal on his head. She picked it up, threw it in there, and then all the other soot spirits looked at her. And that one soot spirit just looked at her straight in the eyes and just drops it on his head. Because he's like, well, I mean, if you're going to do this work, you can do my work too. And they all started dropping it. I laughed out loud there. That was the first time I laughed out loud.
They're my favorite character. The little spirits is the best.
Easily, yeah.
Those are so good. I love the moment too where she comes back down and she asks for her shoes. and they have her shoes. I don't know what that's so wholesome. I love that they liked her so much that they're like, we'll hold on to her shoes for her and her socks. They were both there, and I love that. I don't know what it was with that, but it just them. Yeah, here you go. And she's
Best
like,
characters.
she's like, yeah, thank you guys. Like they were just friends immediately, and it's just there's something to that child innocence where she just accepts, like, I don't know, people would see the Soots and think like there's something off about them or something. We see them and we think they're cute and whatnot, but the people in that bathhouse might see them and be like just kind of off put or something, but she just accepts them. And I like that with her, that she just, and even No Face, she goes back to help No Face, brings helps No Face out, and like, do you want to come with when she's going to the train to go visit the sister? And she's just so
Yeah.
kind and helpful with her, or with No Face, I mean, in that sense. And No Face was going crazy at that point. So also,
Yeah.
I was not ready for No Face to eat the frog. That scared the shit out of me. I will say that. I literally sat there like just kind of looking at my wife like, did that just happen? What the, and so No Face was No Face, and the scene where they're on the train. That's like what I think of. I've seen that picture so many times with this movie. So like, I was waiting to see how No Face was gonna kind of show up in the movie. I didn't know anything about No Face and whatnot. So it was. I will say that's not what I expected of No Face. So
Me either. I'm on the same boat as you. I did not expect No Face to turn into a literal eater of people.
mhm.
I it didn't scare me, but I was just like, oh, so that's the direction we're going with it. Okay.
Just whatever expectations you have, just kind of. I
And
did.
then you get the redemption arc.
You do. I love and No Face's hair. The little bit of
Yeah.
the little bit of hair.
Just randomly had hair at one point.
It fooled me. I was like, man, No Face is human, and then it was because of the hair. But then
You didn't see the hair either until after he ate the frog, which I was like, the frog didn't have any hair. Why does he have hair now?
so like, are you saying like No Face is kind of like Kirby, just absorbing?
I
He
mean,
sucks out the
kinda.
essence of the character and makes
Yeah.
it part of.
Yeah. Man, wild.
Steph, do you have any other themes? I know you came prepared.
Oh my gosh. Well, now I'm just. I feel like we touched on a lot of them. The environmentalism, agree, the corruption. Let me think. Oh my gosh, there's so much I just love about this movie. Can we talk about the soundtrack? Because I've been listening to it on loop.
Yes, yes. The sound. I get heavy Legend of Zelda vibes listening to the soundtrack. For me, I don't know. I just played
Zelda.
I just played Breath of the Wild
Oh.
recently, and I kept getting like these. That's what I kept going to, and I think that's why I was entranced with this music, because I was getting those vibes a little bit. But yes, no, the soundtrack was so good. I loved the soundtrack in this. Honestly, that's why I'm excited to watch this 30 minutes nature or whatever, because then it's just the soundtrack. But yes, God, the music is so good.
I think it's the culmination of everything. It's like not just the animated scenes, but like when the music will pick up, and it's got this. It's so good.
It is. It's
Classic.
it hits on every level that I could want.
I admittedly did not pay that much attention to the soundtrack.
Oh, really?
I think I was just so taken away by the animation that like my ears were kind of off, if I'm being honest with you, because soundtrack is something that I usually do pay a lot of attention to whenever I'm watching anything. Like, I'm really, really big on soundtracks and like shows and in movies. It's one of the reasons why I hold HBO in such high regard, because whoever it is that works in their music department, I think is just like incredible. The soundtracking they do for most of their shows is just mind-boggling good. But like, I think I was just very, very into what was going on my screen. I love the animation. The story just kept moving, and new things kept on happening that I just wasn't in there listening to the soundtrack. I mean, obviously, I'm going to rewatch this movie at some point, so I'll make it a point to listen to the soundtrack. But that just wasn't something that I took away from this watch of it.
One Summer's Day. That's the track. It's the main track for the movie by Joe Hisaishi. I've been listening to it for the past hour. It's It's a good one. It brings me to a peaceful state.
Those
Yeah.
are the vibes we try to bring. So unless things get
Yeah.
chaotic, then it's not peaceful. But I think
I just opened it up.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quick. I just opened it up on Spotify. This absolutely feels like something that I would put on if I was wanting to sort of put myself, like if I was gonna sit down and start writing or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just want like energetic, but also like, but the lack of lyrics helps because that's a little distracting. But it's just like it's definitely a mood,
Mhm.
and that's the mood.
This is what we
for me.
call a vibe.
Yeah.
a creative vibe, you could say. Get those
Yeah, there
juices
you go.
going. Yeah. I think too, the fact, I mean, you could look at it good or bad, but I would look at it as good that if you weren't hearing, I mean, you were probably hearing the music, Jared, but I think if you weren't singling out the music, that means it was a good cohesive piece kind of thing, where it's not if it pulled you out of the moment and you're like, kind of like doing that constantly with the music. So I would take that as a good sign if you weren't necessarily like hearing the music per se. So
I really, really liked her as a main character.
mhm.
And I think that's what I just focused on. Like I was just very, very focused on like what was going to happen next, what decision was she going to make, what other like wrench in her plans was going to happen. Because it's like I think one of the interesting thing about the story is like you think from the beginning, the thing that you're supposed to focus on is, how is she going to get her parents back? But there's just so many other things that happen in between her and her getting to her parents that like I almost forgot that like that's what she was trying to do.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I was just so focused on the movie and the animation the whole time that I think all of the energy that was in my ears got immediately sent to my eyes and my brain, and I just focused on all that
and
stuff.
I think that kind of goes in with what Sean said too. I think that's a sign that the composer did a really good job of writing the music to match the movie and the feelings you're feeling, by rather than making it something where you jump out and you go like, "Oh, I noticed this song alone and nothing else." It's not necessarily a bad thing if that's what happens, but if that doesn't happen for you, it's exactly what you just said, is that it got channeled through you into what you were watching. In the same way that I think of like listening to John Williams when you're watching Harry Potter, and that it just feels like magical. Whereas what did we just watch last week for the podcast? And Boston came on, and we were
The
just
Adam
like,
Project.
The Adam Project.
The Adam Project, and it pulled all of us out of it because it was just like, what the. Why is that song here? This doesn't match the mood at all. Whereas here, I think,
it's different because like I think this, like an example, if we're gonna use a movie like that, like the soundtrack for say Guardians of the Galaxy, I think is incredible. And I think it does nothing but elevate that movie in like every part. I think it actually does some lifting for the movie when it's not very good, for sure. But like and like I mean, Sean knows this. Micah and I, we have not been friends for that long, but like music is like a huge, huge part of my life. So it's very, very weird that I went through this watch and I can't remember any of the songs. Like it's like my brain almost can't process it. Like I almost was like, I would put it on right now, but I want to stay like fully focused into this.
Yeah.
But it's like really, really weird because like I'm even thinking about the end scene when like her and Haku like grab hands and he like remembers who he is. I
love
can't
that
remember the
scene
song
so
that's
much.
playing there. And that's really, really weird for me. Like I would think that because that was such a big moment, my brain would be able to focus on both that scene and both the song that's playing so that I could use that song to remember that scene better. But I don't know why I can't do that right now. It's really, really weird. It's like it's not what I usually do. Or for like Sean, since he just watched it. Or you too, actually. I remember every single song that plays during the big scenes in Euphoria. I can remember them right now. Mainly because it's soundtracked by like one dude, which is Labyrinth. He makes like all that music. But like, I mean, is this also soundtracked by pretty much one person?
Yeah, it's all by the same composer.
Yeah, so it's just like it's weird that I can't make that connection with this one. It could also be because it's my first Ghibli movie. I'm sure it'll be different once I watch
Well, I
Like,
was gonna say it
just
could
don't
also be
care.
once you go in with a rewatch, you might
Yeah.
be able to sort of come in with it with that knowledge of like,
Mhm.
oh, here's how I felt when I watched this scene last time,
Mhm.
and then when you watch the scene the second time, you'd be like, oh, that music is totally doing heavy lifting here, like it's helping me get into this whimsy or whatever mood that the scene is sort of espousing.
Mhm.
My chat brought up another really good point is just the overall theme of the words and like that names hold throughout the movie. Because even without some of the other, the analogies we talked about, just
Mhm.
the whole time, it's like you need to kind of remember your name and
Yeah.
like the power that words hold over like the world and the characters. And I loved that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that was interesting. That wasn't like a way I thought the plot was gonna go in terms of they're taking away your identity and things like that. It was just an interesting thing of getting trapped there essentially, and just like you have nowhere else to go, so I'll just stay here because this is who I am, kind of thing. So it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I think that ties in with sort of what I think is the theme of sort of the loss of history or the loss of past. So it's like you're losing your name or remembering who you are, who you used to be,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way as losing the good food in exchange for eating Kit Kats and Pocky, and losing the river and the fields in exchange for high-rise apartments,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's remembering to keep hold of these things that ground you to your past or to your history or to your culture or to anything, just kind of remembering what you are and who you are and
Mm-hmm.
the things that were before, instead of forgetting in exchange for the riches and materialism and Western what Americanism, if that's what that angle was or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's a interesting point. Steph, do you have a favorite scene in particular?
All of it.
The whole thing.
All of
if
it is so good.
you have to pick one.
Oh. The realization when Haku gets remembers his name is a
Mhm.
big one
Mhm.
there for me. There are some, anything with the spirits.
Mhm.
I also just find it so funny when, oh my god, we're the two characters. So the baby and then someone else gets turned into the little creatures.
The
It's
little
been a
bird.
while.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Yeah.
the bird of hers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, those two are great.
I love when at the end the baby's just like, "Mama, you're being mean. Chihiro's really nice." Like, so that the baby's character was great. So
Mhm.
yeah, but I think if I had to just pick one when they're falling and he's like, "I remember my name now," like that.
Yeah.
That is just peak artistry. Just I was crying. Can't be remembering the soundtrack because there's tears in my eyes.
I think I mean that's another thing is the animation with that part, them falling and like feeling the speed in which they're going, like you see the way the clothes move and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
like you're I feel like this movie does such a good job of making you feel what the characters feel, and it's kind of a weird thing with animation to kind of pull that out of you and whatnot. I feel like the closest thing maybe would be How to Train Your Dragon for me and whatnot, because there's a lot of those flying moments where it's just like, especially with seeing that in theaters where you're just, theater's just a little bit more engrossing because it's just the sounds everywhere and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like the movie did such a good job with a lot of that. And yes, that scene in particular I mean, there are a lot of scenes that are great in this movie. I think we've talked about this before, but I didn't have any moments in this where I was like, wonder how much time's left in this or something. Like this movie was over and then it's like, oh, this movie's over. And it's, for an animated film, this is a pretty long movie. And I don't know if that's a norm with anime films and whatnot, but this was over
Like
2,
2
which
hours.
was,
2 hours, right?
it was just like a little bit over 2. And usually like
25 minutes.
okay. So I feel like, I like when the norm, I guess, if you want to whatnot, but I feel like anywhere between like an hour 30, like to maybe an hour 40 is like that sweet spot. So like this being that long and me not feeling that's always a good sign for me, because I'm not thinking of like I gotta go do, I'm not thinking about that. I'm engrossed. I'm ignoring the music because I'm Jared and I'm watching this movie. You didn't ignore the music, but
Oh,
you're
for a point of reference, The Incredibles is only 115 minutes.
So just under 2.
Let's see how long How to Train Your Dragon was.
I think most anime movies are 130. Is that an hour and a half?
That's
Or-
2 hours and 210.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, I think 130 minutes is the usual.
That's the
length.
How to
usual?
Train Your Dragon,
Okay.
98 minutes.
Hour and a half, a little over hour and a half. Yeah.
There you
Or
go,
maybe
there's
yeah.
your
I
reference.
think it's either an hour and a half or 130. I feel like there's a lot of DVDs I own where it says 130. What about your name? Let me look at your name.
My name's only 4
I never-
letters.
I never really thought about the length of animated films. I think because usually I'm just like so into them. Actually, ooh, that's a good point. How long was Demon Slayer?
Definitely 2
118
hours.
minutes. 119
18?
minutes. Yeah,
Oh.
119 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, just under 2.
Can't read.
which
I thought it would be on here.
we looked that up beforehand. I'm sure you knew this, Steph, but
Honest-
Spirited Away was the highest grossing
Yeah.
worldwide anime film for 19 years until
Yep.
Demon Slayer came out.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's wild. Especially for 2001. I mean,
2001.
Uh, It actually, just so fun fact on that, in comparison, that since I tend to do the box office info,
mhm.
this was the 15th highest grossing movie that whole year. It beat out a couple movies like the first Fast and the Furious.
Wow.
It beat out.
Wait, did those
Let's
come
see,
out the
Vanilla-
same year?
Yep, these are this. I'm about to list a couple 2001 movies for you.
I know, man, right?
God.
Wild to think
I guess
about.
yeah, this came out when I was 11, so oh Jesus. Okay,
Yeah.
Wild to think about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
This out-earned Moulin Rouge.
No, that's not surprising.
I expected that.
Tomb Raider.
That's
2001
not
Tomb
surprising
Raider.
either. Yeah, no, that was not good.
Didn't we get a new Tomb Raider that just came out? Or what movie just came out?
There was
right?
there was a newer one with
Didn't like one just come out like a couple months ago?
Was it a couple months ago, or was it? I feel like it was longer than that.
there was the Alicia Vikander one. That's the one I know, but that was a little bit-
2018.
Yeah, it was in
2018.
2018.
What? Someone told me they just saw this like the other week. I thought, Uncharted!
Uncharted.
Oops, Uncharted just came out.
It's essentially
Honestly, tomato.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we're gonna
It's-
let's
yeah.
be fair.
Thank you, chat.
yeah. I would put those two in basically the same category.
I know. I haven't played Uncharted, that's why.
What was the number one film that year, Micah?
Harry Potter
Oh.
and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay, what was the number two film that year? That's not
The
good.
Fellowship
Fellowship
of the
of the
Fellowship.
Ring.
I knew it. I knew it.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Gosh.
That's so.
Number-
If we've got Steph of Anime, we've got Shaun of the Rings. That's the comparison.
Ooh.
you want. This I've never met
numbers-
a human in my life who loves Lord of the Rings more than Sean, and I don't think I ever will.
I used to fall asleep to the extended DVDs and I would put the commentary on. So I was like constantly absorbing just stupid fun facts about the movies as I'm falling asleep. I did like every the directors, the cast, like the CG department, everybody. Oh man, love those movies. Oh man. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Numbers 3 and 4, respectively, were Monsters Inc. and Shrek.
Okay,
Shrek! Oh
Wow.
my god.
Wow.
that helps me out. That helps me out a little bit more to
Okay.
like figure out where I was
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
How was
So
I
and,
when
and
Shrek came
actually, it's not too far away from Shrek and Monsters Inc. So Spirited Away, globally, sorry, I have to back up. Made 274 million. And Shrek made 484 million. So yeah, about half as much as Shrek. But considering how much of a behemoth Shrek became,
Mhm.
you know, it held its own weight against some titans.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah, that's crazy. God, 2001 was so long ago. 2001
It
to me
was
is like,
so
yeah,
long
man,
ago.
that was like 5 years ago. It's not. It's
I'm remembering when I would watch things and it'd be like coming soon to DVD.
Yeah.
And it'd be like a little blue
yep.
and
yep,
gold
Yep.
screen.
Oh man.
You still going to Blockbuster in 2002?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
god.
I think Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
They're supposed.
When was Netflix created?
2000 and
A lot earlier than you'd think, but they
Then
didn't. They didn't get popular.
Oh,
Yeah.
97 was when it was founded.
Right.
Yep, I was gonna say it started very early as a DVD distribution company.
I think
And
it's
it wasn't streaming until 2007.
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I remember the start of streaming because that was how I discovered Breaking Bad.
Mhm.
They had just started
Oh.
streaming, and
Yep.
that was one of the very few things they had, and so I watched it and was blown away.
My first Netflix watch was The Walking Dead. I
Mm.
got it Christmas morning, and I watched The Walking Dead all the way through. My brother got me a subscription. I still remember.
I don't know what my first Netflix watch was. That's where I have. It's funny how I was thinking about you saying how I can pinpoint exactly when anime was
Mhm,
called
mhm.
anime. But if someone were to be like, "What's the first Netflix show you ever watched?" I'm like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess maybe it was so meaningful to me to learn that. I don't know. I think when someone told me what anime was, like that changed my life. I feel like so.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
that's
Which makes
crazy.
I would argue it did change your life.
Yeah, it did.
I feel like go ahead, Steph.
I was able to Google an anime convention and then start going to anime conventions.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, which makes sense if it helped give you an identifier to something that you strongly felt about or related to, and then could then find a community around it. It makes sense why it would stick out in your memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's also really, really smart on your part to just put that in your name. That from a business perspective, that's genius.
So okay, the joke is because when I do charity streams, I show people my old vlogs from when I was called Tamari773, which was from Naruto. But then eventually I was like, I can't have this name anymore. I need a rebrand. And the rebrand, I thought, okay, I want people to call me Steph, not Tamari. So I need Steph in the name. And if I put anime, people talk to me about anime. That's all I need people to know for us to be friends and have a conversation. That my name is Steph, call me Steph, and I like anime. Easy. And then I put a word in between so that it would sound like a name.
It's from a branding standpoint, it's genius. So
There we go.
Since we're kind of here, I'm gonna ask you a Steph question that I think I've always wanted to ask you, just because
Okay.
I think this is also part of your identity. Where did the love for fairy tales come from? When did that start?
I was at the premiere at Comic-Con in 2000 and the English. Okay, so the English dub premiere was in 2012. Hiromashima was at that Comic-Con. So that was cool. That was like when that first was airing. So that convention was awesome. I got to meet a lot of the voice actors who I really looked up to. And so yeah, they had like Japanese cast, but also like Jeremy Lee and Todd Abercorn, the whole English cast. A bunch of them were there. So that was a great convention. So that one up there. I actually wouldn't put Fairy Tale in like my top 5, but I
Wait,
do.
it doesn't make your top 5?
No,
Really?
no, but I enjoy
No.
it a lot. And the music, all the openings are really great. Like it's one I enjoy a lot. And so when it came to, because of my emotes, right? I have the Urza raid emote. I'm sure that's where
Yeah.
you're thinking. I don't know. I was just like, Urza's bae. She is one of my favorite characters in general.
Okay,
I
all
love,
right.
I
That
love
was literally my
Urza.
next question. I was like, is
I
she
love-
in your top 5?
Yeah, because that's the thing. People meme on me because I'm not sure this is an anime podcast, but Lucy is not one of my favorite characters. And like, she's such a huge part of Fairy Tale. And like, as you watch it, like, she becomes very cool and great. But it's one of those things where it takes very long for me to learn to love her. And so Urza is like, I love her. Give me all the Urza scenes.
I never got there with Lucy. You know, my fairy tale watch ended probably a bit
Right.
shorter than you would have liked it to.
Yeah.
But yeah. I got there with Urza pretty fast because Urza's great.
Urza's bae. She's great. So yeah, I like Fairy Tale a lot. I love it a lot, but it's definitely, my best friend. It's her favorite anime of all time. But for me, I'm like, I like it a lot. It's like a good shonen if you're looking for a typical shonen experience. But I think a lot of my favorite anime, it has to do more for, I guess my criteria for things being my favorite is not just my personal love and enjoyment, but can I share this with someone else and then someone else get enjoyment out of that? Because that in itself brings me joy because I like anime to connect with others about it and not just for myself. Like making it a social experience, and maybe that's just part of who I am as a person, is I love fandom and connecting with people over this stuff. So if it's something that only I can connect to, it's cool, but I like being able to share that with other people.
So is Spirited Away the one you would recommend to anybody if you were to share one with
Oh, yeah.
anybody? That's
Yep.
the one you'd pick. Okay.
Yep. Howl's Moving Castle is a close second. Close second.
Do you just want me to watch Wolf Children, or is that also another one?
No,
you recommend
that's
to people?
That's a top. Where's my Wolf Children DVD? I thought we could have a great. Listen, when I am giving recommendations, it's because I think here's Wolf Children by I think the next up and comer director who's right after Miyazaki is Hosoda. So he's directed Wolf Children, Summer Wars, Boy and the Beast. There's a whole slew of films. The new Belle movie that was in theaters. I don't know if you saw trailers for that. There's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling by this director who's very well known. But this is my favorite of his films. This is from 2012. And I think this is a really good movie to discuss. It's so good. I'm seeing half my chat saying, yes, this is great. And someone saying no, but yes.
My brothers are very, like, they're probably on par with you two with anime where it's like they love it and whatnot. And so my brother's in chat and he said Wolf Children's one of them. That's a good one. So
You know that about your brothers?
yeah, they love anime.
Why don't we ever talk? Huh?
I don't. They're in bed. Although Justin's
Amber's yelling at me for not
Yeah.
coming over for cookouts.
Yeah.
I didn't know your brothers were into anime.
yeah.
I mean, you have a better chance of getting me to move to your state than Ryan does Las Vegas. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Apparently, you've been living here how long now? And you didn't tell us.
Yeah, forever. I don't know if you saw in our. Oh, I forget. You're a member of literally a million Discords, Steph. But Sean had a picture of somebody whose license plate was anime OG. And he sent it to the group, and I was like, Sean, how dare you dox my license plate number?
That's so good. Yes.
Oh.
See, that's the best part about going to like New York Comic Con is people's license plates. I saw Pokemon. I've seen DBZ. Like, oh man.
What's
That's great.
what's the opposite of gatekeeping? Because I would say that's what you are, Steph. Is with anime where you want to welcome people and you want them to enjoy it.
Cult leader.
Oh man, there's got to be a better way.
God.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my.
Literally, the opposite of gatekeeping would just be whoever is ushering you into the door. So, like a hotel doorman,
Gate open.
like
Okay.
you're the hotel, you're the Walmart greeter, like the people who let you in and invite you and help you get to where you're going.
I'm the free samples person. I like
There
that.
you go.
That's a good one.
You're
Free sample?
you're the free sample, the free Costco free sampler of anime.
Oh my god. Yeah, the hotel doorman just doesn't really.
Yeah.
I think your answer to that question was. It also highlights why Sean and I get along so well, and why I like love Sean so much, is because Sean is also very much that way. Like when you were taking that, I was like, this is a very Sean answer for Steph to give.
Aw.
Like he takes into account other people's enjoyment of things when he's trying to talk to them about it. He does it with me in conversation all the time. And I don't know if he meta processes if that's what he's doing, or if that's just like part of your personality. So I don't know if this is like a shock to you or whatnot, but that's something I've also noticed about you when we have our conversations about things, which is really interesting. So much, Micah. You're pickles so far, buddy. It's I see pickles. I saw somebody smoke they smoked a McDonald's cheeseburger today, and they made sure to do one with the pickles on it, and they did one without the pickles so that they could contrast the flavor profiles. And I immediately thought Micah would be into this.
You're never quite gonna know what to expect out of me. I'm always a curveball.
It's like when someone wants to recommend anime, I'm such a big believer that there is an anime out there for everyone to try. And it's so important to recommend, I think, the right show, because all it takes is a bad first impression and people are like, isn't anime all just porn? Which, by the way, I would like to tell a story. Surprise. I was the president of my high school anime club. No one would have thought this. I don't think.
What?
I'm shocked.
Wow.
Oh my god.
And oh my gosh. And, I put on a family-friendly movie, which I'm going to remain unnamed because I don't like people knowing my age. So I don't want to dox it. However, I put on a family-friendly movie, and the librarian is like, is this like a softcore porn? And I was like, no, is it just because it's some cartoon? Like, well, I don't understand. She's like, is this anime stuff? And she straight up asked me. And I said, no, there's nothing inappropriate in this film. I just want people to watch and appreciate this. Anime's come a long way. It's cool to like anime now. And, people are all about it, but people were not about it. And I definitely got bullied a little bit for going up to people being like, wait, do you like anime? Do you like this? people would call me a freak for it, but you know what? I'm really happy that these days that kids can talk about it and nerd out about it, and like it's just more accepted, which is great.
I think that is.
You were talking about this, but like, I still remember kids at high school getting made fun of for like Naruto running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like vividly remember kids getting made fun of for that. Like I can think of like being at my locker in a specific hallway in my high school. Like I'm there right now remembering kids getting made fun of for it. But like now, I haven't seen Naruto and I get yelled at for it. Whereas like before, if like in high school, if I'd said I'd seen Naruto, they'd be like, okay, nerd. And it's like, what a twist, you know?
Right. Now, granted, there are some anime that you don't want someone to walk in on you watching because, like, this is where it gets into more of like, Food Wars. Kakegurui is a big one. I've had people walk in and I'm like, I can explain. It's a very good show. Okay, it's very good.
Food Wars is a great show if you take out the like lewd aspect of it. It's what makes me so frustrated about Food Wars. The story of Food Wars is incredible, but then as you're in the story, it's just boobs, and you're just like, oh come on, just like develop it a little bit more, please. We can go to that later, I promise.
Were you gonna say something, Micah?
I was, and I forgot what it was.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
This is gonna be the worst podcast for that because Micah, you've never seen anime, Jared, before. It is
That's the pat.
It's a beast, man. If we ever do Demon Slayer, honestly, I think Sean just could like Micah just let Jared talk. Honestly, dude.
I'm gonna let you'll do the intro.
We'll see him in 2 hours.
I won't do the intro.
Yeah. I do the intro for that one. It's I think it's beautiful, but for other it might not be pretty for others. I love that anime so much.
I mean, as long as you enjoy it, that's what matters, you know.
So I did remember what I was gonna ask actually. So I think it was going back to your librarian thinking that you were trying to watch softcore porn.
Yeah.
I think for me where the ambiguity comes from, and again, sort of being a newcomer to anime, I think there was a lot of words that transitioned into the American not consumerist, into the American, into the vernacular at the same time that, so from my own experience, like I don't think I really had a full grasp on what the difference was between anime, hentai, manga, just like what all these single word things were for very different things. So in my head, they were all just kind of the same thing. And I never thought twice about it. I didn't judge it, but I also didn't like go into it. It was just like, oh, I don't know. That's like, there's some people in my grade who like this other show or who do this other thing. And so I just never thought about it. And so I think that's where I wasn't even pronouncing anime correctly until college or till late high school. I thought it was anime the whole time. And so it's not something I was ever taught, and because it wasn't, a part of the mass culture at least in my high school, I just didn't know anything, and I wasn't having people go like, oh, this is what you should be watching, this is what you should be getting into, this is a soft entrance, here's the deep cuts, here's what you watch if you want something dark and funny, or whatever. And so that, I think that's kind of what I really needed.
I have to find the TikToks that exist that like talk about recommending anime to people, because there are ones that ease you into some of the more culture shock things and some of the more very niche stereotypes that you see in anime. And there's some people that'll be like, yeah, definitely watch, like, Kill la Kill is an example where a lot of people be like, Kill la Kill's amazing, go watch Kill la Kill. I would never ever recommend that as a first anime for someone ever. I just think it's cool, but I would never do that. And I think that, the other thing is keeping in mind what genres people like, because it's not just like a one genre fits all. Like there's romance, there's action, there's deep psychological, murder mysteries. Like there's all sorts of stuff. So
sports animes.
Sports anime is its own thing. I think some people will just be like, watch this popular one, but if somebody's not going to watch like a Western show that's like that, why would you make them watch a cartoon version of it?
Right. Mm-hmm. There's two that I can think of that I always hear the name of and I know nothing about other than some people on the internet love it. and they might, for all I know, they might not even be animes, but One Piece is that one? Okay, that's really popular, I think, and My
really long.
Hero Academia.
Oh,
Is that another one?
yes.
I think those are the only two that I really continuously hear about on Reddit or on wherever I am on the internet. That that's about all I know of.
One Piece is one from 2002. It's been still going.
Doesn't it
new
have like
episodes.
900 episodes or something?
Yes, it's got so
Yeah.
many. That's why I haven't watched it. It's just
But-
I like to start from the beginning, and that's a commitment.
Yeah.
So, Steph, what would you recommend, or Jared, I guess, for something that if I were to look for something that's like I like really dark, and as in like whether it's comedy or drama, just like really dark and I'm selling my
Okay, I need a more
question really
in-depth
terribly.
analysis here. So aside from dark, can you tell me like some of your favorite shows and what you liked about your favorite show?
Just in general,
have you
or like
seen Swiss Army Man?
What?
Have you seen Swiss Army Man?
It's got Daniel Radcliffe.
Okay.
And
It's got Daniel
Paul Dano.
Radcliffe and Paul Dano. It was our first movie we ever reviewed.
I have not seen this
was
movie.
it the first one?
If it's not anime, I don't know what anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
I was gonna
anime.
say, if you can find an anime in your mind that reminded you of Swiss Army Man, that would be
See,
right
my
up my
problem is I
okay.
have the lacking knowledge of the movie, but
Yeah,
I'm hoping through your
yeah.
explanation I'll be able to get it.
So, Swiss Army Man is a movie about a guy who's stranded on an island. It's really depressing, but it's also really happy, but also really goofy and weird and powerful, but out of the ordinary. It's about a guy who finds himself on an island stranded until a corpse washes up on shore, and he thinks it's alive, and so he rushes over and he's like, "Oh, I'm saved," or like, "There's somebody here," and then he finds out he's dead. And he's like, "Okay, I'm alone again." But then the corpse starts having large amounts of flatulence, and he uses the corpse to jet ski off of the island because of the sheer amount of flatulence coming out of this corpse. And that's just the intro. That's just the first 5 minutes. So the whole movie is about him and this corpse who begins to talk because he puts this is going to get really crude.
Okay.
He puts a cork in the corpse's butt to stop all the gas from coming out, and it starts coming out his mouth in the form of words. And then the movie is about the journey of this guy and his new friend. It's the journey of this guy and his new friend who just happens to be a corpse.
You know
getting off
what?
an island.
I'm gonna give you the cop-out answer. You should watch my favorite anime of all time, Fullmetal Alchemist and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, because in a way there's a corpse related.
Jared,
have you watched Fullmetal Alchemist? You have watched. Okay, good. I need to make sure.
That was my first one that I watched to get myself back into.
Did you
anime.
watch just Brotherhood or did you watch both?
I watched both. I watched Full Metal Alchemist first, and then I watched.
That's the best way to watch them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was also. I watched that, and then I watched Sword Art, and then I watched this like literally all in the span of like 2 weeks. It was like Full Metal Alchemist, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Sword Art Online. And maybe I started My Hero then, but I feel like My Hero came later. But yeah, I've seen them. Both.
My chat's giving some interesting recommendations, but see, there's that anime Konosuba. I think is too deep. You gotta watch a few other anime before you watch Konosuba. Like it is like dark and humorous, but not as a first anime in my opinion.
I think Full Metal is a good.
Full Metal is my favorite because it's I think one of the best gateway anime that you can bring someone in for.
It also gets pretty dark at some point.
Oh yeah.
I'd probably say for you, I don't think this is too deep. Although I think after today's news, I think people have some mixed opinions, but I think Attack on Titan would be a good start for you. I don't think it's too deep. I think it gets to the points that you would like pretty quickly. Also, I think you being somebody who loves film, I think like you quote unquote the cinematography in
Yeah.
Attack on Titan is something else that would really, really draw you in. So
Mhm.
that would be my recommendation. There is no flatulence men.
So the funny thing is, I don't like fart jokes. Like, that's not why I like that movie. I'm a fan of things that are incredibly depressing, incredibly relatably depressing, really funny in a dark way. It's like
Yeah.
jokes about death and dying and
Mm.
all that type of stuff. I like the feeling of hopelessness. and
Yeah, no,
loss.
there's a lot of anime that fits this category. This is
Yeah.
true.
Oh yeah.
This is
Okay.
true. There's just some though that I think get like, again, it's navigating some of the like Evangelion is such a classic, but also is very intense. Like, I don't know if that should be someone's first anime. Ava,
I haven't even dove into that one because I don't think I'm ready to like get invested in it. Also, that's another one that has like a really, really intense, I feel like, online community.
oh yeah. Well,
And
because
I'm
I mean it's very yeah. I feel like it was part of the cultural revolution. Like, you have Dragon Ball Z,
Mhm.
you've got your big shonen, but I think Ava is also up there, like with the class. Like Cowboy Bebop is another one that I would
Yeah.
say.
Oh yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think Ava is, yeah,
I'd say Naruto's probably part of that revolution. I'd
yeah,
say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big three, right? One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach
Mhm.
were like the big three.
Do you think Avatar helped in any way? I feel like Avatar maybe would have been a gateway for some people.
Avatar's a really tricky one for me.
Yeah. I mean, would that be considered an anime? I feel like
I would
I've seen-
not.
You would not.
I
consider-
wouldn't.
You would not. Okay.
No. But
I wouldn't either.
Okay.
I don't think it is ridiculous to say that Avatar could have been a gateway into people looking for more animated content,
Mhm.
which then led them to anime.
Mhm.
I don't think that's too much of a stretch.
I think it feels anime inspired, even though it's not necessarily inspired. It has like a similar, like it's adjacent, anime adjacent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should coin that. That's a good way to put it.
That's gonna be my new podcast, anime
Anime
adjacent.
adjacent.
Honestly, that's not a terrible name for a podcast. And if
No.
you need any guest speakers or anything like that, I do know somebody who might be interested.
Micah, I didn't know that.
Actually, that would be a really fun thing to do with Micah, is have Michael watch through anime for the first time and then we talk about it.
I
For
mean,
me, it'd be fun. Sean, I don't know if you're into that at all. Micah, if you want to do that, I'm game.
Yeah, no, I've jotted down a bunch of things to put on my. So I wrote down Full Metal Alchemist. I wrote down Attack on Titan, and I
Are
wrote
you into
down-
science? Are you into sci-fi?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like So for instance, during all this like Star Wars revival stuff, I haven't been super crazy jazz like some people have been, but if it's a good story, I mean, I'm there for it.
Jared, have you watched Steins Gate?
No,
That's-
remember, it's next on my list.
Please, please.
Now that I have Crunchyroll and
Yes.
they did the merger and whatever, I have access to so many more anime. So that's on my list. Steins Gate and Code Geass.
Yes.
Yeah, they're on there.
Yes,
I
please
thought
watch
you were going to
this.
recommend Dr. Stone there for a second.
Look at these. These are all. See, I feel very biased because all my favorite anime are also the ones that I like. Yeah, I would recommend to people because that's part of the reason why they're my favorites. But they're like, "Oh, Steph, you're always recommending your favorites," but because they're good gateways.
Yeah.
You know, I recommend Demon Slayer all the time, so it's fine. I'm annoying about recommending Demon Slayer.
I feel like I've seen Demon Slayer through you, almost.
I
Yeah,
just
you
found
started
out
reading the
about it
manga,
an
didn't
hour
you?
ago.
No, I started reading Attack on Titan. I watched the first.
That's right. You did the okay.
I watched the first. I might have watched the first season of Attack on Titan, and I haven't finished. Or
I don't think Attack on Titan hits with everyone. I really like Attack on Titan, but I see where it misses for a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Oh my!
What's the appeal and what's the miss? Like, what's the?
I think
Okay.
it's really intense.
So there's a lot of. First of all, it's extremely gory.
Yeah.
So you have to be okay with that before anything else.
Totally.
And if you're not okay with that,
Sign me up.
yeah. So there's that. I mean, the animation's beautiful. Okay, it's the pacing. I think that gets a lot of people. The pacing and the historical background elements to it. I would say.
I
So
only
for some
recently
people,
started learning about that.
because are you caught up, Jared?
No, I have not done any of the final season because I was under the impression we are going to get 2 parts of it. And so I said when the final part of part 2 was released, I was just going to watch it all in one
The
go.
final episode of part 2 came out today.
But then they're just like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, guess what? Part 3 of the
Part
finals is
3,
today too." I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh, well, great."
It was either gonna be a movie or part 3 because they were not finishing it. But okay, so the thing is there's a lot of historical politics, I guess, is
Yeah.
the way to put it.
Yeah, that's the
And
best way to
if
put
you
it.
eat that up, you'll love it. Otherwise, you're like, there are a bunch of people sitting in a room for this episode. This is boring. Like, it depends on like, are you invested in the world building that they've done up to this point?
Mhm.
So
I personally think it does a better job of making up for the sitting in the room than say Dragon Ball does for the powering up. Because like there are some scenes in Attack on Titan where I don't think I was able to pick my jaw up off the ground.
mhm.
And it gets depressing minute 5. So like
Oh,
that's
That's
why I
true.
think it would be good for you because I mean I can't remember the last time a show made me that sad.
Have you watched Promised Neverland?
I think I started. What did I start? I always get these mixed up. Which one's Promise Neverland?
The one
Let me
with the
look at
3
it.
kids.
Yeah. And they have numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started it. I have not finished it yet.
Oh,
That is
really?
one that definitely.
You gotta go
That's
in
one where I
blind.
remember I watched it where I was like, "Wait, this is happening now."
Yes. Exactly.
That one scene where they reveal the curtain, I'm just like, "Wait, what? That's what the show's about?" No indication whatsoever what it's about. By the way, like you're not gonna be able to guess it. It just happens.
Yeah. I don't tell anyone anything about that show. I'm just like, just watch it. It's good. It's an experience.
That's one of my favorite ways.
So
to learn
I've
stuff.
derailed us onto other anime, but I would love to bring us back. Was there any other last minute things we did want to chat Spirited Away wise?
No, I think this is good because I think I mean we've never. This is the first anime episode of this podcast, and I hope we do more.
of many.
The first of many. Yes, I agree, and I think it's kind of a good gateway into just exploring this for people like me and Micah, where I think it's something I've been interested in wanting to watch. I think it's one of those things where it's daunting because there's so much. There's so much stuff that I don't really know where to start, and so it's kind of a
show you the world.
yes. And so it's one where well, I guess like the Ghibli films and things are, those are easy. It's easier to just like up it on one movie where like you've got I'm looking at Crunchyroll right now where like My Hero Academia's got 257 videos. And it's just like, oh my god, like
Wait, is it that many?
that's what this is what Crunchyroll is telling me. I don't know.
Oh wow.
There's 2 of them here. The one says 116, one says 257. This is going into my confusion though. Like where do I go with this stuff kind of thing. But no, I think this is an important thing to talk about because it does show like what you said. There's anime for everybody. Like the sport. I remember my brother Will talking to me about you guys mentioned sports anime, and he was talking about one.
Was it the
IQ
volleyball
probably.
one?
It was
Yeah,
a
it's usually-
basketball one.
Oh,
was it slam
Kirko?
dunk?
I have no clue. I don't know what it's called, but he was talking to me about like.
I love how Steph is like, "Oh, is it this one? Oh, you're talking about this one?"
Yeah, and it was like it's just like it is not something I would think would be an anime, and I'm sure that's the case for all sorts of stories, all sorts of different shows where there probably is literally something for everybody. So it is
Yes.
it is just kind of finding that right one that clicks with you, and you're like, wow, this is awesome, and there's thousands more to kind of explore. So no, I'm completely fine with this. I wouldn't even call it derailing. It just kind of fits the conversation of it all. So
Yeah,
I
I'd
was-
love to
yeah.
do more animated movies, whether it's anime or
Mhm.
weird other type of animation. I love animation. It was actually really interesting with the Grammys, or not Grammys, Oscars. Apparently, the way they presented the Oscar for animated, somebody in there mentioned that the category was basically for children because they're animated films. And I know a lot of people were really upset because they're like, they're tired of this idea that only children watch animated films.
mhm.
And so I am always just a big proponent of showing people like The Incredibles is legitimately one of my favorite movies ever made. So when anybody asks me if there's a movie that they like want to watch, like if there's like, oh, I need something to throw on, The Incredibles is always one of my first suggestions. Same with Fantastic Mr. Fox. Different kind of animation, but still animation nonetheless. So like I love that we're diving into this style of animation
don't
because I also love it.
Don't stir that pot.
What?
Nothing. Micah was.
I
giving you a
was
thumbs down.
doing
being sassy.
I was teasing you.
Yeah, now it's
What were you doing? I wasn't looking at you. I was impassioned.
that's
I
for
was
the better.
thumbs downing Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh yeah, because you and your Wes Anderson thing, whatever nonsense. But yeah, no,
I feel like we could take that even further, by the way. I mean, even with the COPPA laws, this is more relevant to content creators and YouTube and Twitch, but there was the whole thing right now where you have to classify as your content for children. And this is extremely relevant if you're like a Minecraft content creator, Pokemon, and they'll be like, is your content for children? And I'm like, well, no, I watch streamers play Pokemon, I watch YouTubers play Pokemon, but there's like people in that government don't understand that and are making the laws such that it like children are. And I don't know what the answer is to this problem, by the way, but I find it sad that there isn't really a voice for the adults who like this kind of content. And then you know what I mean.
No, I agree, because I mean, even within just like animation, you have like adult animation, like Family Guy is in no way, shape, or form for children, but like that's still animation, like it's made legitimately for adults. And then you have that whole just like kind of genre that like Seth MacFarlane has decided to go down, and none of that is for kids. So yeah, I don't know, I find it extremely frustrating, because I grew up watching animation, I liked it, I continued to watch it, I don't plan on stopping watching it anytime soon. Like if somebody tries to tell me I can't watch Futurama because it's animated, I'm gonna lose it, because it's incredible television. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to it either, because like there is animation that is made for kids, and there's animation that could be made for both, and there's animation that's definitely not for both.
I think that's one of those things that's just gonna require a bit of time for the people who grew up with animation where it was more than just a kid thing.
Right.
Because like my parents are very guilty of, like, oh, I'm not going to go watch Up because it's an animated film. And it's like, Up is one of the most beautiful films, and the best opening, most beautiful, depressing, sad opening of any animated film. And there's no way that I would be like, Up, let's get some kids in front of the first opening scene of Up. But like, my parents are just sitting there thinking like, oh, my dad's... I can remember watching Superman on one of my 3 channels in 1950. And so, so I think that's just one of those things that with time, because it's in the same way I remember when South Park was getting all, and it's like, well, it's so raunchy. And it's like, American Pie came out at the same time as South Park. Like, it's just meant for different audiences. And so I think it's just with time, it'll start growing into a thing where, you'll have animated dramas and comedies and coming of ages and thrillers, and and people are just going to differentiate it because that's what it is, not because of the style of art they chose to display it as. Hopefully, that's what I would hope is just time.
We're kind of there now. It's just us doing it, because like Netflix is a whole bunch of animated shows that fall into those categories, like can you imagine like a kid watching like Human Resources or Big Mouth?
They learn a lot real quick if they were watching
they
Big
would
Mouth.
They would learn a lot real quick. That is a good point.
I guess it gets complicated with YouTube, because the big thing is, right, like if it's designated for kids, you can't comment on it, so like your interactivity goes down, you don't get monetized on certain types of those kinds of content, and it's like, but that's how I made my community. Right? Yeah.
Like you can get dinged for saying this is for kids, but then doing something that they deem not for kids. Like you can get kind of in trouble that way, right?
Yeah. It's a mess.
That seems to me, and I could be wrong as I'm not as into the streaming world as you guys are, but that seems more like an issue of Google having very poor all-encompassing algorithmic type of responses to things. Like they're placing rules and regulations as a way to try to stop this from happening or this from happening, and they're just kind of coming in and slapping a algorithm on top and saying like, all right, everything needs to abide by this, and then it deletes the ability for all these sort of fringe groups to fit in anywhere because they encompass more than one area. But maybe that's not it. I don't know.
Good question to think about.
It is.
Get a Google dev on here.
Yeah.
Google, if you're listening, let's have you on the podcast.
They're always listening. That's the problem, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of
That's
the
yeah.
sad, depressing. I love it.
This was also not on my our first anime episode bingo discussion card thing of where we were going to go with this.
Yeah.
So the child prostitution and the Google
Big
YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what works.
All right, I've got my list of stuff I'm gonna watch. So
Good.
I appreciate all those recommendations.
Yeah.
And
Report back.
Yeah.
yeah,
I will literally talk to anybody about anime at any point. So if you ever dive in there and you're curious about stuff, or you want to just get your like thoughts and stuff out, you can DM me, no problem.
I mean, he can talk
Message
about
me
it.
anytime.
yeah. I'm excited to give these a whirl, and
You can
I'll
talk
report back.
Yeah, you can talk about it on episode 2 of the of our anime section that we do, because I feel like we have to do another Ghibli film at some point. So
I agree.
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah, I feel like we were all in unison of where we felt. Oh, Steph, you got to come up with a rating system. We got to rate the movie.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
So
Yeah.
so we
Ooh, okay.
So the thing about our podcast is, on the first episode, we all picked a different way to rate what we watched.
Okay.
It's very chaotic, and some would say not coherent to a good format.
Okay.
But
Said that.
some would say that.
he put out some feelers.
So Jared rates pass or fail.
Correct.
I rate 0 to 7, and Sean rates 4 Rudy paws, and potentially a boop on the nose if it's really
That's
good.
when I really like it. Yes.
That's when he really likes it. So that's his rating system, mine and Jared's. So
And then
would you
another frame of reference? I'll give her one more so she can gauge
Oh,
how she wants. Is Ryan?
don't
Ryan
need to
did
borrow that.
colors, which is absolutely confused. I don't even think he understands. But all I know is olive drab. I think he said.
Yeah, I have it right here. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, read. Yeah,
right here,
please,
down.
because
Ryan's scale is on a scale from olive drab to royal purple. Olive drab being worst, royal purple being the best. For reference, he gave the movie Hot Fuzz a yellow,
Uh-huh.
which was on a traditional 1 to 10 scale, that was below a 5.
Mm.
And then we watched a movie Good Time a couple weeks ago, and he gave that fuchsia, which is a net positive on a 1 to 10 scale. That's above a 5. That's all we know. But he described the way the color made him feel, and that's his rating system was a color.
so basically, do
I've
whatever.
got my system.
You have your system.
Yes.
Perfect.
I've got
Okay.
it.
Okay. Perfect.
And with help of my Twitch chat too, because we're brainstorming as this was all happening. And
Perfect.
there's one that speaks to me here.
Okay.
We're gonna go from Pokeball tier to Master Ball tier.
Oh, that's
this
a
is
good
gonna
one.
be the
That's a
rating
good
for this
one.
one. I like that.
good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
That's perfect. Then this
Big
will be
fan.
So much nuance you could do there too. Like there's the netball.
Yeah.
There's
Oh.
so many.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Michael.
Okay.
That one we can all follow.
Yeah.
Ryan's
That
is-
makes sense, Ryan, if you're listening.
Yeah.
A
Idiot.
universal
And-
point of reference.
And listen, just as some people might use their Master Balls on legendary Pokemon, and some might use Master Balls on their favorite Pokemon,
Right.
there is going to always be a different underlying reasoning, I think, why you use the Master Ball. And so, with Spirited Away, this is always in the top 2 or 3 anime movies I think that someone should watch if they're not going to watch a series and they're going to pick an anime. Like, to me, this is a classic. This is the one to watch to get a sense of anime, to get a sense of what a movie can be like when it's not so action-packed, yet it's so, like, provocative and, like, it brings a lot out of here. So it's a Master Ball tier for me. I think this is a movie you got to watch before you die.
Whoa.
Perfect. I love
Yeah.
it.
I think culturally what it does, like, and for the anime industry, it's like you can't ignore the film for its artistry.
Mhm.
That's a
Like the
amazing
history,
assessment. I love it.
the history behind it, you know, the fact that it's just good on its own, but all of that combined, like, has heavy weight.
Yeah.
Without the history, it would go maybe down a little bit, but the history, like, it has to bring it up. Like, you have to watch it.
I think you just gave us another theme for another week. Films you have to watch before you die.
Mm.
That's
man.
a really good week theme.
It is.
There's a
book.
podcast about that.
There's also a book on like the 1,001 films to watch before you die or whatever. So
The actor who plays on Ted Lasso,
Beard.
His beard. Oh no.
Brett
Roy
Goldstein.
Keane.
Brett Goldstein.
Yeah, Brett Goldstein has a podcast called oh God, why am I forgetting everything right now?
I love that podcast.
He has a podcast where he asks people movies to die by, films to be buried with Brett Goldstein.
That's a great name.
Nice.
It fits that character too. If it's
it's roughly that same concept as what you were just saying.
Interesting.
Steph, really quick. So
Yeah.
does that mean on your scale would Pokeball be the lowest, or is there a different ball that you consider to be a worse ball than Pokeball?
No, I think we're gonna keep Pokeball. I'm not gonna be mean and make one that's like aesthetically uglier under Pokeball because technically, according to its stats as a Pokeball, it would be better than a Pokeball. So, yes, Pokeball is the bottom. And Premier Balls are cool. I do like Premier Ball, so Premier Ball might be a little bit above. I would give Premier Ball as a rating to one that I think is like trash story but is gorgeous.
Oh.
Like that's maybe what we would give Premier Ball. Then you got Great Ball, Ultra Ball, Quick Ball is Quick Balls are great. 30% catch rate. You know, great first impressions. Like if something leaves a great first impression, you gotta go with Quick Ball. Dust Balls are amazing. Amazing balls. So like they have a really high catch rate as well. I think 30 to 40% in a nighttime arcade. Maybe a really good before bedtime kind of watch. Yeah.
There's
repeat balls for ones that are better on the second go around. Like if there's like
this
a movie
that you absolutely crushed Ryan on this. Like just put him in the dirt. Your system is better than anyone's.
Your system is by far the best one.
It actually has meaning and purpose behind it.
There's a lot of nuance to it too. It's not just like a number.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. Yeah. Man, this will be exciting too because then when you come back on, which I hope you would come back on whenever we do another anime film, but now you have your system in there, so it'll be good to look back on and see all your Pokeball reviews and whatnot.
Honestly, I would love to have you come back on to watch a non-anime movie because I want to know how your brain works when you're not watching anime.
It's embarrassing. I do always tell people like my anime knowledge is insane. And people will be like, Steph, have you seen this movie? No. Have you seen this classic film? No. Do you know who this actor is? No. Who's this? So yeah, that would be fun. Anytime.
Awesome.
Like, do you want to do your rating? I gave mine away already.
His is a pass.
I'll
Wait,
do
you
mine.
rate this a pass? Like not pass, like pass the movie.
No,
like,
no.
Okay.
My rating scale is
like pass
or fail.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to make mine really, really simple because it seemed like everybody was having like they were really in thought about whether or not like how to do it. And I was like, I'm just gonna do a pass fail because then it's not gonna be that hard for me. Turns out, actually, it's very, very hard. Limits to me significantly, but that's what I said. I'm sticking to it. I wish I had talked to you sooner because I could have done something like yours. But no, I'm pass fail. This one was probably a pass from like minute 10. This one was easy.
There's a differentiator for you, Jared. Yours could be I was pass from the start, or I was pass one at the midpoint, or it took me 3 hours of talking with somebody about the movie before I became a pass. That could be an interesting spin on whether it was pass or fail for you.
We'll have to. I think I have yet to have a conversation where it like
completely
a conversation decisively put me in the other category. Like I feel like whenever I'm in the middle, I usually lean more towards away. You know.
So I'm finding that. Any movie where I initially started with a lower rating, once I'm talking to someone who has a lot of thoughts about it that I didn't start with, and that I can sort of pivot and bounce off of, so like with Good Time, that was a bit lower, and then Ryan diving into some of the aspects of it brought that up for me. It still, I think, wasn't a pass for me on that regard, but his opinions and the conversation we had elevated my opinions on the movie. So With that being said, I think I'm gonna give Spirited Away. I'm gonna go 4.5 out of 7. I liked it. I thought it was very charming. I thought it was a good introductory movie to sort of dip my toes into and to find which genres and styles are going to be more at my alley. But I can see the angle that I could take to sort of really find where the niche is for my specific tastes. And so that's why it's overall positive. And but I think there's ones that are better suited for my style and would be more likely to be a 7 out of 7 in the anime realm. So I gotta save some room so I don't give the first one I watch a 7 out of 7. You know what I mean? I gotta find the one that hits me. So that's my score for now. Sean, you?
I'm gonna do, and I'm sorry to do this to your pause, Rudy, but I guess I don't know how this doesn't make sense. 4.5 out of 4. He grew an extra half a leg. He's asleep anyway. It's fine.
Wait, wouldn't it technically be 4 paws and like half a boop?
Half a boop? I guess, yeah, that would make more sense. See, this is where my system gets weird.
You accidentally booped him with your elbow.
Yeah. I started the boop.
Like a graze.
Yeah. That, yes, we'll do. That's mine. Is 4 and 1/2 of a boop. I would never half boop Rudy. I would fully boop that dog every time, though. So that's.
What about like when you wake up in the morning and you're just like, "Oh, Rudy, I love you."
I love you, Rudy. No, it'd be a full boop. It's never a half boop. But for the sake of the rating, I will say it's a half boop. It's fine. 4.5. 4 paws and half a boop.
4 paws, half a boop.
I know, it's confusing.
I gave Sean his system, which is why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, you really are. I mean, man, yours cracks me up though, because you really do struggle with
as simple as it is, you shouldn't struggle.
I thought it was going to be easier.
Yeah, and you've struggled more, I think, than anyone. So it's been fun.
I can't believe that that Steph came in here and just blew all 3 of our rankings out of the water on our own podcast.
Yeah, we've been doing this for weeks now, and just immediately.
This is week 11. This is week 11, and we're already just blown.
I'm honored.
Yeah,
and it's my excuse to come back so that you can have the exclusive rating system.
Yeah. And you were put on the spot with it too. That was pretty quick. So props to you and your chat, because that
props to you and props to your chat.
Twitch chat helped.
Man, that was
Twitch chat watches me play a lot of VGC, and that's how you rank in Pokemon, competitive Pokemon. Is you go Pokeball tier, Great Ball tier, Ultra Ball tier, Master Ball tier.
Okay, man. Yeah. Fitting on so many levels. I love that.
And then we started adding in the extra Pokeballs.
Yeah. Oh man. God, you get that.
It'd be hard for me to not invite you back every week.
we need that extra Pokeball rating, because I don't know. Yeah.
You could have a segment, it's like call up Steph. So you're in the middle of recording and be like, all right, Steph, with very little context, this film, what would you give?
Here's the IMDb synopsis. What are you going to give?
Here's a brief outline of what happens in this movie. Go. I'm gonna give it a netball.
I probably repeated.
It caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
I got nothing else.
Yeah, I've got nothing else too. I would say, Steph, thank you so much for taking this time to chat with us and to share your love of anime with us, because it's definitely made me more interested in checking out, especially some of these shows, but just more of that studio stuff too. And I'm eager to dip my toe in a bit more.
Aw, thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. And gosh, I feel like we could just talk for hours and hours and hours. So seriously, thank you all so much. And thank you to everyone who's listening, whether that be through the live stream or on one of the amazing platforms where this will be available afterwards. We love you. We appreciate you. Make sure you're following all of the lovely humans who you can hear on this podcast. There's many great humans here. So make sure you're following everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. Everyone that's watching here. Yeah. Appreciate you all. I'll find someone for us to raid, Steph. I don't know what your plans are. Are you going to keep streaming? What are you doing?
No, I need to go to sleep because my coworkers are in the UK, and if he wakes up and sees that I'm live, it's really awkward because he's Steph, I'm clocking in for the day. You should get 8 hours sleep. So I would love to double raid someone. Okay. Is there someone you have in mind?
I see General Andrews is on. So
Oh,
yeah.
our
Another
podcast
anime fan.
extraordinaire.
Yeah, I would say that's where I was probably going to send people. So, but yeah, thank you so much for doing this stuff. Really means a lot. Hopefully,
This is so fun.
yeah. Whenever, and if there's a film that you have any interest in wanting to try, we're open to pretty much anything. So, but I think, I mean, I know
Just send me a message.
yeah, if we do another anime, we'll be reaching out to you, and I hope that you'll join back. So.
Yes, please. Actually, have you all seen Your Name? Because I feel like this is like a huge, like a more recent modern, but this one took the world by storm. I think this is one of the best.
I do. Well. I remember that coming out, but no, I've not seen that. So that
Which one is that?
called
Your Name, or it's also called Kimi no Nawa.
All right.
I think from the sheer fact that it blew up and also did extremely well in theaters, and Weathering with You is also really good. Oh my god, they're both so different. It depends on what kind of mood you want to have the conversation go. They're both tonally very different, but they're beautiful movies.
Hey friends, thanks for watching and listening to this week's episode. I want to give another huge shout out to Steph for coming on and tackling and discussing anime with us, our first anime. All of the socials for all of us, including Steph, will be down in the information down below. So if you want to follow us and all that good stuff, be sure to do that. And make sure to follow our Discord. Want to help us pick what we're going to be watching next. So, all right, friends, thanks again. We'll see you soon.